Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal Venerable. See playlist for other chapters and novels. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 741, Confiding in Yan. The short lives of those two siblings were to be full of misfortunes. It was as if it was written in the stars that they had to go through such so that they might serve their true purpose. Ever since they got older, the chance to stay together became rare. Whenever they had an opportunity to be with one another, an obstacle came each time. Martial cultivators could keep growing stronger because of their natural advantage and unique luck, but it was almost impossible for them to escape their fate. Just like what others had told Zen, Yan was his ultimate guide in life. Every step that he took had a purpose that was related to her. Their lives were connected. When he was still in the Luo clan, Zen had always intended to head to the Cloud sect in search for his sister. After he successfully located her, his next objective was to save her. Because of his excellence as a disciple, he was able to take her away from Mountain. Unexpectedly, after a short period of reunion, they had been separated once again for several years. They never saw each other since. All of Yan's six senses had been blocked, so she didn't have much clue what was happening around her, not even the passing of time. Her memory had also stopped processing new thoughts and absorbing new ones 2 years ago. Back then, she despaired for the most part. The only thought that stuck with her, for the most part, was if her brother could really save her from Eddie. It was without question that Zen was extremely talented, but he was in the eastern region. Her brother had fought formidable opponents in the eastern region, but the central region had their own ferocious talents. For her, defeating Eddie was going to be a challenge for Zen. Yan fell asleep with all the thoughts still swimming inside her head. Zen's face was the last thing she was expecting to see the moment she woke up. The spirals in her black pupils rotated slowly as they expressed great joy upon staring at his brother who was now right in front of her. Unable to contain the joy he felt upon seeing his sister, Zen extended out his arms and pulled Yan's thin and slender body into a tight embrace. A familiar warmth enveloped Yan's heart as she rested her head on Zen's chest. However, she still had her doubts about the situation. Did Zen really come to save her, or did he only make an agreement with Eddie so they could meet? How did Zen even find her? Brother, where is Eddie? Hesitation was evident in Yan's voice as she asked. It only meant that she also feared the answer to her own question. Maybe Zen only came to visit, and her fate was still the same. Still stuck, still alone. However, she was also a determined martial cultivator, and she knew that there were some problems that would eventually come her way in the end. No matter what, she knew she had to be brave. I killed him, Zen whispered softly into her ear. But, brother, Yan's voice trembled in both shock and disbelief. It's true, I killed him with my own hands, Zen said as he stroked Yan's hair. Although her six senses had been blocked in the past 2 years, she still grew. She was taller than she was before. However, her figure was clearly thinner, and her black hair was lackluster. Zen was distressed to see how weak she was. Not even bothering to hide her disbelief, Yan pursed her lips. She sighed deeply, trying her best to collect her thoughts. As Zen's sister, she trusted her brother's words unconditionally. However, what he had just spoken of wasn't that easy to accept. Truly, it was hard to believe. Unless people were able to witness such a thing, it was merely a lie. Something like that wasn't just a story you could tell without proof. It took Zen quite a short time to achieve such brilliance that he possessed. 3 years ago, he was only a nature-level warrior, then entered the illuminating soul realm only 2 years ago. In just 2 short years, he was able to build himself like that. It was quite hard to comprehend for anyone, even his own sister. If they were to be compared to him and his achievements, had all the efforts of those warriors who lived hundreds of years been wasted? Did all the efforts exerted by the ancient tycoon of the World Commercial Alliance go to waste? Those were the questions that added up to Yan's refusal to believe what she had just been told. It was the central region, not the eastern region. But Zen had still managed to do something on unfamiliar grounds that no one else ever did. Seeing Yan's shocked expression, Zen smiled softly. In a serious tone, he reassured, I will never lie to you. Eddie is dead, really dead this time. And it was I who killed him. I believe you, Yan responded firmly. Since Zen had already confirmed it, how could she doubt her brother? He said it himself, he wasn't lying to her and he never could. For some reason, she couldn't help but worry. She asked, then, will you get me out of this place? If Eddie really was dead, then she had finally regained her freedom. She could return to her brother's side safe and sound and without any more obstacles. Her mind hadn't stopped working despite all her blocked senses. While she was imprisoned in the world where only her consciousness existed, she had always looked forward to the very day her brother came to the rescue. However, Zen shook his head and said no. The expression on Yan's face shifted quickly. Raising her voice by a notch, she asked, why? At that moment, Zen turned his head and asked, can't you give me a little more time? If there was something that man knew well, it was patience. He only smiled at Zen and said, time doesn't matter to me. Do as you wish. Time was limited for most ordinary mortals, but for people like him who had lived for millions of years, it didn't really matter that much. Thank you. Zen glanced at the man before he pulled Yan's hand and walked out of the ethereal spirit hall. Although the ethereal spirit sect had been invaded by the heavenly evil sect, it had also been chosen as their temporary headquarters. Therefore, its surroundings were well preserved and taken care of. It was nothing like the ethereal city, where the independent warriors had taken away all that they could carry and destroyed those they couldn't. As they walked out of the ethereal spirit hall, a green scenery inundated their eyes. It was a sight to behold. They walked side by side along a shady path lined by trees. Zen looked quite calm, while Yan's face was filled with distress. She was bothered by the same question. Why couldn't Zen just get her out of that place? Why can't you just take me with you? After walking for a short distance, Yan suddenly stopped and asked. There was an unpleasant look in her eyes and her tone resembled that of a kid throwing a tantrum. After thinking for a while, Zen replied with all due honesty, that man in the hall will be the one to take you, not me. I don't want to go with him, Yan replied, shaking her head. They had been separated for such a long time, and now that Zen had killed Eddie, wasn't it just right for them to reunite? It was unbearable for her to think that they were to be separated again. Zen was very patient with Yan. After all, she was his only sister. They were family. With a bitter smile, he explained, but I can't beat that man. He's very powerful. If I know deep down that I stand a chance against him, I will fight him without any doubt so I can be the one to take you away. How powerful could he be? Is he even stronger than Eddie? Yan asked, her eyebrows tied in knots out of extreme curiosity. Yes, Zen sighed with a pang of hopelessness in his heart. Yes, he is so much stronger than Eddie. What if we just escape now while he can't see us? Yan suggested as she pouted her lips. He didn't bind our hands and feet. We are still free, she thought to herself. She found it impossible to comprehend the gap between that man's strength and her brother's. Escape, that's never going to happen. Zen sighed, shaking his head. It was as if he had just heard the darkest joke in his life. Escape, from that man, pretty funny. Faced with an expert of that level, he knew that escaping was never going to be a choice. To add, there was nowhere to go. Even if Zen didn't know much about that man's origin, he was definitely unknown to the central region. Zen reckoned he was most likely from the upper world. According to Zen's knowledge, if anyone from the upper world wanted to descend to the lower world, they were to be bound by many restrictions. Only a warrior from their own world could freely come and go. Otherwise, the visitor was to be rejected by the whole world. For that exact reason, a warrior who descended from the upper world was considered to be an enemy of all living beings. If a warrior forced his way into the lower world, he was to face the entire world against him, and his strength was to have limits as well. That man, however, wasn't rejected by the world. In Zen's eyes, it was very possible that the world didn't dare take him as an enemy out of fear. That was how fierce he was. No matter where he intended to go, that man could just easily locate him. Even if he had gone to the Sea God continent, that man could get there before he even did. So, when Zen asked if he could take a walk with Yan, it didn't bother him one bit. He wasn't afraid that Zen would ever plan an escape, because no matter what he did, he never could ever escape him. Yan, do you want to hear some of my adventures in the past 2 years? Zen suddenly asked, shifting the topic. Yes, please, Yan enthusiastically nodded. Although unhappy about their current circumstance, Yan genuinely wanted to know what had happened to her brother in those years that had passed. She was curious about his experiences and how he had managed to eliminate Eddie in just a short period of time. In fact, I saw you at the Oracle City's martial arts contest 2 years ago. But your senses were fully blocked then, Zen said. Really? Yan exclaimed, having no single memory of that occurrence at all. They continued to stroll along the green path as Zen told his stories after the last time they saw each other. The Cloud Road test, the enrollment of the Cloud Hall, the martial arts contest, the competition for the Dragon Soar Arena, the fight with Marilyn, the activation of the enchanted lamp from the Celestial Tomb, the journey to the Sea God continent. Zen told every single experience he had to Yan without any reservation. They had been apart for too long, and the truth of all things was the only gift he could give her. Chapter 742, Confusion. Zen did not hold anything back from his loved ones. This included his fate to lead the world of chaos with Yan as his guide. He was a little muddled about these things, for they were mere guesses and conjectures, but he wanted Yan to understand that this was their fate. If he wanted complete control of his destiny, he needed to have enough strength. Unfortunately, he wasn't strong enough right now. Far from it. Because he was unable to change his and Yan's fate, he could only watch helplessly as Yan was taken away. Zen slowly narrated the situation while Yan listened on quietly. When Zen talked about all the dangers he had dealt with, she widened her eyes and covered her mouth with her small hands, a worried expression on her face. Yan found it hard to swallow that her brother had experienced so much danger in the past few years, and all of it for her sake. When Zen finished speaking, Yan let out a long sigh of relief. She vaguely understood their fate. The two siblings were destined to walk a life of struggle. However, compared to Zen, Yan was a bit more fortunate, for she only needed to be patient and wait for her brother. Zen, however, was risking his blood and life to fight his fate. In this journey of destiny, any misstep could lead him to death. I'm sorry, but I understand now. Yan's eyes were red. She knew that she shouldn't have blamed him. Zen just smiled. I should be the one apologizing to you. I'm worthless. If I had enough strength, I wouldn't have let anyone take you away, even if it was God's will. Certainly not that young man. Hearing Zen's words, Yan smiled back. I believe you. You'll get stronger soon. Yan's eyes shone with blinding trust. The reunion was short, but the brother and sister cherished every second of it. They strolled in the forest before reluctantly entering the ethereal spirit hall. As they walked in, Zen's gaze landed on the young man's face. I can allow you to take Yan away, he stated coldly. The young man's mouth curved in a faint smirk. You don't have the ability to refuse. A streak of vital light left Zen's eyes. He fixed his gaze on the young man, replying, You are right. I'm not strong enough to stop you at the moment. But I will be one day. If anything bad happens to Yan before it, you will pay. Zen didn't feel that the young man in front of him was very hostile. His reason for taking Yan away was not so bothersome, so Zen's tone was not too harsh. Unexpectedly, the young man kept smiling. I'm looking forward to the day you will be strong enough to be my match. Zen frowned. The man was much too stronger than him. Zen didn't know how many years it would be before he could fight him, so there was no reason in speaking any further. Suddenly, something struck him. No one else could solve this problem, but this young man might have a way. Letitia's life had been exhausted. It might not be too difficult for this young man to bring her back to life. It should be just a piece of cake for him. Zen was never willing to ask others for help, but since this involved Letitia, he had to swallow his pride regardless. I want to ask you a favor, Zen blurted out. Go ahead, the young man said, still smiling faintly. Clearly, he was patient. Zen quickly informed him of Letitia's situation. The life and death wind and the law of causality, the young man said, his smile becoming more irritating by the second. I can indeed undo this level of the law of causality easily, but I won't help you out. Why not? Zen asked, scowling. Because this too is your fate. I cannot interfere too much with it. So far, we have already violated the rules. You must work hard. As for Yan, I'm taking her away. Letitia's situation is also part of my fate. Zen lowered his head in thought. Suddenly, he felt a pair of small, ice-cold hands cradle his neck. Yan kissed him on the cheek. After learning about her and her brother's fate, Yan somehow seemed more sensible than before. Perhaps, she understood it now. She knew that her brother had already exhausted far too much of his energy. Not wanting to burden Zen any further, she tried to look optimistic. With a smile, she said, Zen, do your best. Looking at Yan's confident smile, Zen understood that she was trying to reassure him. Even though he felt depressed, he smiled and nodded at her. If Yan wanted him to be happy, he must be happy. Just as the young man was about to leave with Yan, Owen spoke up. Can you undo the seal on my girlfriend? His girlfriend's six senses had been sealed. The unsealing would be troublesome and could even potentially be dangerous. If this young man could easily unseal her, it would spare Owen a lot of sorrow. His girlfriend would wake up earlier. The young man didn't refuse his request. He didn't want to interfere with Zen's fate, but that wasn't the case with everyone else. With a casual wave of his hand, the seal on the girl was removed. Realizing that his girlfriend was cured in the blink of an eye, Owen gasped with joy. He almost knelt down before the young man. That young man didn't respond to this. He just held onto Yan's hand and smiled at Zen. "Work hard, little guy. Don't let me down," he said. A moment later, Yan and the young man disappeared from the ethereal spirit hall. They left in a strange manner. There was no spatial passageway or even a space tearing. There wasn't even a trace of any fluctuation of the space law. How did the young man do that? After they had left, Zen stood in the great hall for a long time. Not too far away, Owen's face beamed with joy as he whispered in his lover's ear. As a divine-level talent, Owen had faced many twists and turns. Back in the martial arts contest, he had almost died at the hands of Marilyn. Now, his wish had finally been granted. His lover was saved. With his divine-level talent, he would certainly be valued highly by the World Commercial Alliance in the future. Now that the impeding danger of the heavenly evil sect had been eliminated, he could become one of the most important men in the World Commercial Alliance with his talent. Zen saved his sister on this trip to the ethereal spirit sect, but he still had to bid her farewell. He was in low spirits on his way back. The problems with the heavenly evil sect had come to an end. The war that had wreaked havoc in more than half of the central region had ended. However, the crisis was not truly resolved yet. The threat from the York Divine Kingdom was a sharp sword that hung over everyone's heads. And now, this sword could drop at any moment. Dylan had known that Zen was worried about his sister even before the latter headed to the ethereal spirit sect, so he had waited to discuss this matter with Zen. With Zen back at the World Commercial Alliance, Dylan wasted no time in approaching him. From Zen's tone before, Dylan deemed that he had found a way to tackle the situation. However, Dylan couldn't figure out how Zen planned to deal with the Soul Sea Realm warriors from the York Divine Kingdom. Perceiving the worries of Dylan and the others, Zen smiled. "I have a way to deal with the matter. The connections of the World Commercial Alliance are all over the central region. Please help me look for someone extraordinary who would be capable of curing Letitia." The confident expression on Zen's face confused the three leaders of World Commercial Alliance. Previously, fighting Eddie had been difficult enough for him. Why was he so confident about facing the powerful warriors of the Soul Sea Realm? What was Zen up to? Could it be that Zen had retained his strength and was able to face the powerful warriors of the Soul Sea Realm successfully? That was impossible, but if so, Zen wouldn't have just let Eddie use the life and death wind, causing Letitia to confront this fate. But what else could explain Zen's utter confidence? The three leaders could not come up with an answer to this question no matter how hard they tried. Zen had never let them down before. They wondered if he truly had a solution. Dylan agreed to it, promising that the World Commercial Alliance would mobilize all their connections to find this one extraordinary person who could come up with a way to save Letitia. Chapter 743, Ancient Jade. Zen still felt the chances were slim. The famous doctor, Zane Shui, had already examined Letitia and proclaimed that she was not injured, nor did she harbor any kind of disease. Her life energy was just depleted and left her in a vegetative state, like a wilted flower. There was no way one could bring a wilted flower back to life. However, Zen was not going to give up. Letitia was also struggling with her life, and he had no right to give up on her. Many disciples of Cloud Hall had already returned to Cloudy City through the transmission array. Since Letitia's condition made her unable to take charge of the sect's affairs, the elders agreed to have Zen become the interim leader for the time being. It was a very suitable arrangement. After his victory against Eddie, Zen was now the #1 warrior in Central Region. It would be to Cloud Hall's advantage to have such a strong person in charge of its affairs. Zen, however, refused. He had no intention of taking charge and, after the defeat of the Heavenly Evil Sect, he was sure that both the Cloud Hall and the World Commercial Alliance would now reign supreme in the Central Region with or without him as the leader. Besides, he had other important matters to attend to. Still, there was a need to appoint a leader for Cloud Hall. In the end, Zen chose St. Morphans. The battle with Eddie left St. Morphans with a few injuries after he had taken a punch from him. It had taken him a few days to recuperate, but he was now as good as new. It made sense to appoint someone like him since St. Morphans had served as Letitia's close confidant. Zen was at ease with him taking charge of Cloud Hall. Zen remained by Letitia's side. She was like a sleeping beauty that showed no signs of ever waking up. He would sit beside her most of the time to cultivate. When he wasn't cultivating, he'd comfort himself by quietly staring at her sleeping face all day long. During this time, the World Commercial Alliance had already spread the news throughout the entire central region. Their influence reached even the remotest areas of the central region. This was thanks to their monopoly of life vitality crystal trade and circulation in the entire central region. The population of the entire central region was abuzz with discussion. I heard the bounty was a low-grade sacred weapon plus 1,000 supreme life vitality crystals. Isn't that too high? Most ordinary third-grade sects don't even possess those things. Third-grade sects? Are you dreaming? Even a fourth-grade sect would kill for just one sacred weapon. They're spending so much just to save an already dying girl. Are you kidding me? She's not just some random girl. She's the leader of Cloud Hall. For someone at the life and death realm, the price can't be described as too high. My family has an ancestral pill formula that can bring one back from the dead and even extend their lifespan by dozens of years. I'd like to give it a try. Don't talk nonsense. You'll just end up embarrassing yourself. All the top pill refiners are already gathered in the World Commercial Alliance. Do you think they'll take a fancy to your pill formula? The attractive bounty had all sorts of people rushing into the World Commercial Alliance to present their treasures. However, it was true that the World Commercial Alliance was already abounding with capable people. Most of the people that came were swindlers. Those who presented their magical pills and techniques paled in comparison to the members of the World Commercial Alliance. It seemed Letitia's problem was really something that couldn't ever be solved. Half a month had passed after the offering of the bounty. It was at that time that a beggar, dressed in rags, entered Oracle City. The beggar arrived in front of the World Commercial Alliance's headquarters and claimed that he had a way to treat Letitia. The guards from the World Commercial Alliance had no patience to deal with the beggar. All sorts of people had already dropped by to offer their remedies, but none had ever been useful. Naturally, one of them chased the beggar away. However, the beggar did not leave and instead inquired about Letitia's residence. It was not a secret that both Zen and Letitia were temporarily staying in a palace in Oracle City which was specially allocated by the World Commercial Alliance. The beggar easily managed to get this information and found the location of the palace. He once again patiently explained his purpose to the guards of the palace. He was also sent away. Left with no other choice, he girded up his loins and actually jumped over the wall. He had a nature-level cultivation. Perhaps wandering around as a beggar had been his method of cultivating. Not long after he trespassed the palace walls, he was discovered by the warriors that guarded the inside. The palace's defenses were not poor. Its walls were filled with one-star runes that, when activated, would emit sharp chirps signaling the entry of an intruder. After the beggar triggered these alarms, it consequently attracted the attention of the guards. The guards made quick work of surrounding the beggar. Ever since the World Commercial Alliance spread the news, tens of thousands of people entered Oracle City in droves. Although most of the applicants who claimed they could help Letitia had been screened beforehand, there were still a large amount of people who managed to step into the palace. Every single person who entered the palace gave Zen a glimmer of hope, but he always ended up disappointed. However, he could not refuse to see them. What if the next person who came was the one who could help Letitia? He was not willing to take such a risk. Even if it was by a minuscule margin, he had to give that person a chance of saving her. It's a pity the chirps disturbed your sweet dream, he joked, gently stroking Letitia's hair. He would have been happy if the chirps had indeed disturbed her and woke her up, but she remained fast asleep. At that moment, a loud noise burst from outside. What happened? He frowned as he stood up to see the source of the commotion. Who would ever dare barge into his palace? Outside, he heard a guard shouting, "You dare trespass into the heavenly stellar palace? You must be courting death. Take this person down and send him to prison." His guards surrounded a tattered-looking beggar. As a powerless vermin who was only at the nature level, the beggar could only stammer in front of the guards, "I've come to offer my treasure to Master Ning." "Treasure? You? What a joke," a guard said coldly. "Take him away." Realizing that they would never believe him, the beggar took out a tattered sack of cloth and held out a piece of ancient jade. This ancient jade was left behind by an immortal and has the ability to restore a person's life energy. I heard that Master Ning's life energy has been exhausted. This ancient jade of mine is definitely useful. Idiot off. The guard spat. How could he ever listen to the ramblings of a beggar? There were just too many swindlers in Oracle City nowadays. The guards had naturally gotten tired of listening to these kinds of gimmicks. Most of these supposed swindlers only dared to wander around the heavenly stellar palace, but none had the gall to actually break inside. At first, Zen had no plans of interfering in this matter. However, the ancient jade the beggar had shown to the guards changed his mind. The beggar wasn't lying. Zen could indeed feel the life energy from the ancient jade. Using his perception to scan it, he discovered that it was similar to a living thing. Take him away. Make sure to put him behind bars. That'll teach him. A few guards had already grabbed the beggar by the shoulder, preparing to escort him out of the palace. It was then that Zen decided to make his appearance. Hold on. The leader of the guards immediately bowed down in shame once he realized that Zen had actually been alerted. Master Luo, we. Silence, Zen said dismissively. He then turned to the beggar. Come with me. A look of ecstasy appeared on the beggar's face at Zen's words. As for the guards, they immediately let him go. Chapter 744, The Beggar. There was no guarantee that this ancient jade would be of any use, but Zen would take any chance he could get. He was a desperate man clutching at straws. There was only one way to find out if it could heal Letitia. At the very least, he would be able to feel the life energy within this ancient jade. He had no more time to waste. Letitia, who used to be full of life energy, was quickly wasting away. The life and death wind had all but depleted her life energy. Zen didn't know how much longer she could last, and he prayed silently that she would be able to absorb the life energy inside the jade. He led the beggar into the room where Letitia was. Then, extending his hand, Zen said coldly, "Hand it over." The beggar took a step back in surprise and curled into a defensive stance. If it's effective, then the rewards, he demanded, looking at Zen and maintaining his careful pose. You will be compensated well, as long as it works, Zen replied impatiently. However, the beggar shook his head at this and said, the things you are offering are of no use to me. I am only a warrior at the nature level. He paused before continuing, I want to join the Cloud Hall or the World Commercial Alliance instead. Zen's patience was wearing thin. He had no time for this beggar's demands. Throwing a sharp glance at him, he answered, if the jade works, I can help you. So stop with the demands and give me the jade. In the world of warriors, there was only one thing that mattered, strength. Zen could easily snatch the jade from the beggar. He could even kill him to make sure his mouth was kept shut. That was what many others would do. But not Zen. The beggar of course understood this. As a warrior of the central region, he knew how the rules worked. The moment he had chosen to present the treasure, he had already decided to gamble. The man before him seemed to be one to keep his word. Nodding to Zen, he handed him the ancient jade. As the jade touched his hand, Zen felt a warm sensation. It was unlike the characteristic coldness one would normally find in a piece of ordinary jade. Was it because of the life energy within it? Or was it because the beggar had kept it close to his body? But now was not the time to wonder. There was a far more serious situation. Zen walked towards Letitia, but hesitated when he was right in front of her. How was he going to transfer its life energy into her body? The beggar noticed Zen's conflicted expression. He explained, my ancestors said that these kinds of ancient jade could only be used after being crushed. Once they are crushed, the life energy within them will automatically dissipate. There is more than a piece of ancient jade. Zen's heart skipped a beat as he caught on the connotation of the beggar's words. He glanced at the beggar. This guy was no fool. He probably didn't bring all the pieces of ancient jade he had. But first, he had to see if it was useful. Zen placed the ancient jade above Letitia and crushed it with his fingers. Cracks appeared on its surface, a translucent light emitting from the cracks. The life energy, he thought to himself. He kept a close watch on Letitia. It was too early to rejoice. He didn't know whether she would be able to absorb the life energy or not. He watched her face for any sign of change, his breath caught in his throat. This life energy inside the ancient jade was indeed quite strange. After the light broke out from it, it started to go towards his own hand. Zen hurriedly retracted his hand, fearing that he would absorb the energy instead of Letitia. She needed it now more than ever. After Zen removed his hand, the life energy hovered above Letitia's unconscious form, and then pierced into her body. Is it working? Zen's eyelids twitched as he watched the light disappear inside her. Soon, Zen sensed Letitia's aura grow stronger. His own pulse quickened as he felt her energy. It was just a sliver, but to Zen, it was a great hope. The ancient jade had worked. It was able to replenish Letitia's life energy. With this realization, Zen turned his head to the beggar. His eyes bored through him as he asked, how many pieces of ancient jade do you have? At his question, the beggar looked nervous and fidgeted. I have It was true that he still had other pieces of ancient jade, he actually still had 7 remaining. The beggar was Hansen Lee. In the old times, the Lee clan was also among the ranks of third-grade clans, but it faced a tragic decline in its warriors. 300 years ago, the clan fell and no one was able to revive it. However, from the ruins of the clan, the 8 pieces of ancient jade had survived and had been preserved to this day. They were the Lee clan's most precious treasures. No one in the clan had ever thought of using them. Then came the announcement from the World Commercial Alliance that anyone who managed to save Letitia would be rewarded greatly. Hansen Lee had caught word of this. The announcement already mentioned of something that had to do with life energy. Taking the jade, he went forward and tried his luck. The Lee clan had already been buried in the dust of the past, but he might be able to change his future. According to the old records of his clan, the ancient jade contained life energy, and from what he had seen just now, it seemed that it was indeed useful. Hansen Lee was no fool. He knew that if he were to take all the pieces of ancient jade and give them all at once, he would not be able to make the most use out of them. There were also plenty of stronger warriors than him. If they were to snatch away the jade, all his hopes would be gone. And so he made a plan. When he entered Oracle City, he found a few secret places and hid the remaining 7 pieces of ancient jade in 7 different locations. Only he knew where they were. No one else would be able to find and use them except him. However, he was now facing a dilemma. He did not expect Zen to see through his plans so quickly. He fidgeted as he thought of the best way to answer his question. Zen was quick to notice the beggar's hesitation, and he knew immediately that his speculation was right on the mark. He asked the question again, this time more sternly. How many pieces of ancient jade are left? Where are they? Hansen Lee stuttered. He originally wanted Zen to swear on his warrior spirit that he would live up to his promise. That way, he would have a guarantee that he would get what he wanted, even if he had to give up the 7 pieces of the ancient jade. However, under Zen's severe expression, his tongue kept on trembling. Zen was getting more and more ticked off at the beggar's seeming refusal to answer. The things that I have promised will definitely be fulfilled, he assured him. In the future, you will be a member of the Cloud Hall and you will be under its protection. Now answer my questions, he demanded. Zen did not want to waste a single more second bargaining. He needed to know how many more pieces of ancient jade the man had. 7. I still have 7 pieces of ancient jade. I buried them all outside Oracle City. The words poured out quickly from Hansen Lee's mouth. 7. Zen felt the heavy weight of disappointment drop on him, the number was too small. He looked at Letitia as she lay with her eyes closed. There had only been a small sliver of life energy in the piece of ancient jade. Only 7 more would not be able to restore all of Letitia's life energy. However, it was better than nothing. If 7 pieces of ancient jade were all that Hansen Lee had, he would make sure to get all of them. He turned to the beggar and grabbed him by the shoulders. Take me to them, he said. Zen flew at an unbelievable speed out of Oracle City. Under Hansen Lee's guidance, he quickly dug out the 7 pieces of ancient jade one by one, and then made his way back to the Heavenly Stellar Palace. He went straight to Letitia and crushed the pieces of ancient jade as he did earlier, and life energy from them flowed into Letitia. He watched as her body took in the life energy. Still too little, he thought anxiously. He waited for a while. Letitia still did not make a single move. Not a flutter of an eyelid, not a twitch of a finger. She lay motionless, sleeping like a child. Zen merely stood there in a daze before he let out a faint sigh. Not enough. His voice trembled. At his words, Hansen Lee tensed up. He understood that the pieces of ancient jade did not have much of an effect. His position in Cloud Hall was in danger. You will keep your promise, won't you? He asked. The World Commercial Alliance will pay you 1,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals, Zen said absently. But your jade didn't wake Tia up. I can't give you a low-grade sacred weapon. Hansen Lee's faces lit up with joy at his answer. Even the Lee clan wouldn't be able to take out 1,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals at its peak. Any third-grade clan, not counting those with ties to the Cloud Hall and the World Commercial Alliance, would not have many of these crystals in their possession. The sum of 1,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals was enough to make him a nouveau riche. For Hansen Lee, a warrior at nature level, it was more than enough for a reward. He would not dare ask for a low-grade sacred weapon anymore. He was already beyond satisfied with just the Supreme Life Vitality Crystals. Aside from this, a low-grade sacred weapon in his hands would only bring about a fatal disaster. He had really only been interested in the crystals since the very beginning. But before you get them, there is one more thing you have to tell me. Where did these pieces of ancient jade come from? Zen asked and looked Hansen Li in the eye. Right now, this was his greatest concern. He had laid eyes on countless rare treasures in the central region. However, this was the first time that he had seen a piece of ancient jade that contained life energy. If Hansen Li could give him any clue, he was determined to go and find these pieces of ancient jade at all costs. He wouldn't just sit still and watch as Letitia's life energy dwindled. Tell me, Zen repeated when the man did not answer. Tell me everything you know about these jades, and 1000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals will be yours. You will also become an elite disciple of Cloud Hall. Now that the Heavenly Evil Sect and the Ethereal Spirit Sect had been annihilated, the Cloud Hall was the largest sect in the central region apart from the World Commercial Alliance. Even when the Cloud Hall was only a 4th grade sect, warriors from the central region had all been rushing in like a flock of birds, and competition had only escalated from then. As a nature creature with a mediocre talent in martial arts cultivation, Hansen Li could never hope to enter Cloud Hall. However, right in front of him was an opportunity to change his fate. How could he let this chance go by? Chapter 745, The Soul Sea Realm Masters. Hansen quickly nodded and said, the ancient jades were left behind by my ancestor. Zen was also anxious and naturally impatient as the fellow in front of him wasn't giving him a straight answer. So, I don't know where exactly the ancient jades came from. Hansen repeated. Upon hearing this, a murderous look took over Zen's face. He stared at Hansen and said coldly, you're playing a trick on me. Hansen was stunned to find himself suddenly enveloped in Zen's killing intent. His face turned deathly pale and his legs went weak. Unexpectedly, he knelt on the ground. I don't dare fool you. Please let me finish what I'm going to say first. Speak, commanded Zen tersely. The ancient jades have indeed been left behind by my ancestors. However, our Li clan saved someone 700 years ago. That person, he is a master from one of the 4 great divine kingdoms. Hansen quickly added, our Li clan was able to develop and become more powerful because of him. Although my ancestors haven't told me about the history of the ancient jades, I'm assuming they might have been left behind by him. They came from the 4 divine kingdoms. Zen suddenly raised his eyebrows. There was some truth in Hansen's conjecture. He had never heard of the ancient jades in the central region, but they contained miraculous life force. If the ancient jades came from the central region, other members of the region would have found them long ago as they were very powerful. Irrespective of that, Zen had finally found a clue. The life force contained in these ancient jades was not enough to wake Letitia up, so he had to make a trip to the 4 divine kingdoms. When Zen was lost in thought, he saw Hansen looking at him eagerly. He naturally understood what he was thinking, so he said, follow me. Hansen was overjoyed. He followed closely behind Zen and they went straight to the World Commercial Alliance. The atmosphere in the World Commercial Alliance was still solemn. Despite Zen's promise of single-handedly dealing with the Soul Sea Realm Masters of the York Divine Kingdom, Dylan and the others were still preparing for the battle. But no matter how much the World Commercial Alliance members, who were highly intelligent, tried, they still couldn't come up with an effective strategy for the war. The Central Region and the 4 Great Divine Kingdoms were on completely different levels. Up until now, the Central Region never had a sacred place in its true sense, and the 4 Great Divine Kingdoms had a long history with quite a few Soul Sea Realm warriors. Thus it was possible that the 4 Great Divine Kingdoms might be stronger than the Sea God continent. Even Eddie, who was at the Life and Death realm, almost destroyed the Cloud Hall in the World Commercial Alliance. In the end, it was Zen who managed to turn the tables. In this case, they would surely be no match for the Soul Sea Realm Masters. The members of the World Commercial Alliance had a huge disagreement on this matter. Dylan was inclined to trust Zen. Although this trust was somewhat blind, Dylan believed that since Zen had given his word, he naturally had his own ways of dealing with the situation. As for Hobbs, Haber and the rest of the elders, they didn't want to pin all their hopes on Zen. Hobbs believed that the York Divine Kingdom's target wasn't the Central Region, but Zen. What Master Wallace had said via the mirror made one thing clear. He knew that there was a huge secret hidden in Zen's body, and that was what attracted the masters of the York Divine Kingdom to the Central Region. In fact, before Zen's appearance, the 4 Divine Kingdoms had never shown any interest in the Sky Northern region in all these years. Since this was Zen's problem, there was no need for the World Commercial Alliance to take the fall for him. It was not that the members of the World Commercial Alliance were ungrateful. But survival was a natural instinct. Zen had killed Eddie this time, which was indeed a big relief to the World Commercial Alliance, but it had nothing to do with the current situation. If they felt that they couldn't defeat a strong opponent, they would definitely find a way to escape. Just as they were debating on the matter, someone arrived in the meeting hall and announced, "Zen wants to meet you all." Dylan nodded and said, "Invite him in quickly." Zen brought Hansen into the meeting room. When Dylan saw the beggar behind Zen, he was slightly surprised. Zen, he is. Now, Zen's strength was no less than anyone else's in the central region. The three leaders of the World Commercial Alliance regarded Zen as their peer. "You should give the 1,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals to this man," Zen said to the members of the World Commercial Alliance with a faint smile on his face. Hearing this, the three obese men were shocked. The 1,000 Supreme Life Vitality Crystals were a reward for Letitia's treatment. Since Zen was asking them to give it away to this man, could it be? Has Letitia been rescued by him? Dylan asked, glancing at the ordinary-looking man behind Zen. In the last few days, besides plotting against the York Divine Kingdom, the World Commercial Alliance members were trying their best to help Zen screen extraordinary people and find the best one, which was the most important task for the time being. There were all sorts of extraordinary people, and a majority of these people were swindlers, but in order to save Letitia, they would hold on to any ray of hope however small it might be. There were many warriors in the World Commercial Alliance, but only a few hundred warriors had the expertise to screen extraordinary people and identify the best one. Many elders were also enlisted for this task. They were surprised and wondered whether Zen had figured out a way to save Letitia before they could. However, Zen shook his head and said with a smile, "Yes and no, to some extent." "What do you mean, Zen?" asked Hobbs immediately. Seeing the puzzled expressions of the crowd, Zen told them that Hansen had given him several ancient jades. The others understood what was going on. "So do you plan to go to the Divine Kingdoms, Zen?" Dylan, however, could guess what Zen was thinking. "Yes." Zen nodded without the slightest hesitation. "After I deal with those guys, I will go to the Divine Kingdoms to find the ancient jades." Dealing with those fellows. Everyone was surprised. Zen was indeed arrogant and confident. It was not easy to deal with the Soul Sea Realm Masters of the York Divine Kingdom. However, Zen had never let anyone down so far. But why was he so confident? Everyone looked at Zen in confusion. Hobbs, who had a quick temper, couldn't help but yell, "Zen! What is your plan? Can you tell us first?" "That's right, we are indeed curious. Do you really have the strength to defeat the Soul Sea Realm Masters?" Haber, who seldom spoke, also piped in. Dylan smiled faintly. Their doubts were reasonable. No matter how powerful Zen's trump card was, he would never be a match for a Soul Sea Realm Master. This was a mystery no one could figure out. What was more, it was a mystery that would affect everyone. It was a matter of life and death. It would be unreasonable on Zen's part to hide it from others. Zen smiled wryly, but didn't keep them in suspense any longer. He said directly, "It's very simple. Indeed, I do not have the strength to fight a Soul Sea Realm Master, but since the York Divine Kingdom will send their Soul Sea Realm Masters here, we can also ask our Soul Sea Realm Masters to fight them." What? Everyone in the meeting hall was shocked. Soul Sea Realm Masters? The central region didn't have any such powerful masters. "Zen, are you joking?" asked an elder of the World Commercial Alliance, shaking his head. He did not believe Zen at all. "I am not joking," Zen said calmly. Everyone looked at each other in confusion, but they felt that Zen was being illogical. Hobbs questioned him, "If you have the help of the Soul Sea Realm Masters, why didn't they show up to help you when you were fighting with Eddie?" Zen was almost killed by Eddie in the battle against the Heavenly Evil Sect, and Letitia had been unable to wake up because of Eddie. Zen's eyes flashed. "Because Eddie is someone I must kill on my own. In order to stabilize my warrior spirit, I must personally kill Eddie. This is my test and also the first step towards conquering the whole universe," he exclaimed. Zen's words reverberated throughout the room as an aura of majesty erupted from him. This was his domineering demeanor. His domineering aura was completely different from that of Eddie, whose aura was extremely crass and imperious. Eddie couldn't be bothered to reason with anyone and would suppress all those who opposed him. But Zen had an impressive aura. Who would have thought that he would actually risk his life to fight Eddie in order to reinforce his warrior spirit? He clearly had a safer option, but he was willing to risk his life and chose the most difficult path. And he would do so bravely. Everyone was silent for a long time. Finally Dylan asked, "Well, may I know where the Soul Sea Realm Masters you mentioned are?" Chapter 746, Charging Forward. Everyone's collective gaze was focused on Zen. Dylan's question was also what everyone was most concerned about. Zen had said that they could have the help of the powerful warriors of the Soul Sea Realm. But they were nowhere to be seen. Where were they? There were many hermits in the central region, who never ventured into active society. Even the World Commercial Alliance knew little about some of them. It was said that there were even 2 or 3 life and death realm warriors among them. But who they were, no one knew. However, there were no powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm among the hermits. Where would Zen get the Soul Sea realm warriors from? Master Shi, I will give you the answer in 7 days. Please be patient, Zen said, folding his hands respectfully. Dylan nodded. He believed in Zen the most. Moreover, Zen had no reason to lie, it would not benefit him in any way. Moreover, the powerful masters of the York Divine Kingdom were targeting Zen. As to the others, they were still somewhat skeptical about what Zen was saying. 7 days would pass by very quickly and soon enough, they would know whether or not Zen's words were true. Hansen had originally followed Zen here, greedily hoping for rewards. But when he heard talks about the powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm, he suddenly felt dizzy and confused. However, this meeting hall was full of warriors at the virtual tribulation realm. A mere nature creature like him would tremble in the face of any one of them. He didn't dare to interrupt. Sensing the lull in the conversation, he said in a low voice, "Well, about my reward," and the voice trailed off. Dylan looked coldly at Hansen and then ordered someone beside him to take Hansen to get the Supreme Life Vitality crystals. Hansen didn't dare ask Zen about joining the Cloud Hall, but he was smart enough to understand the situation. Since Zen had agreed to it, Hansen believed that he would keep his promise. So he thought that he could go to the Cloud Hall once he had obtained 1,000 Supreme Life Vitality crystals. Once he told them that Zen had promised him about letting him join the Cloud Hall couldn't refuse him. Zen summoned Lavender once he returned to the Heavenly Stellar Palace. Lavender had been hiding within Zen's body all this time, so she knew why Zen had summoned her. When they had left the Sea God continent, Amber had connected a message rune to Lavender's statue. Since Lavender's soul was too weak, she was unable to communicate with the Demon Knight's sacred land through the statue like the other queens did. However, with the special message rune connected to the queen's statue, she knew that it would work. Once Zen ignited the message rune, Lavender closed her eyes. Her eyelashes trembled as she entered a different state of mind. Tens of thousands of miles away, the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place stood on the Sea God continent across the endless sea. The members of the Demon Knight from the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place had a routine that consisted of worshipping at the Supreme Queen's statues every day. To them, the statues of the queens were like a spiritual totem. Amber led the members of the Demon Knight to piously kneel in front of the statues. This ceremony of worship would last for about a quarter of an hour, and they never missed it. As they worshipped the statues, the third queen's statue lit up, a message rune burning in the air. The statue of the Queen of Killing seemed to have a voice of her own as it resounded across the worshippers. Amber, Lavender said, although she presented an image of being extremely clever and nimble before Zen, she was still the dignified and supreme queen who ruled over the members of the Demon Knight. Her voice sent the members of the Demon Knight into shock. But they recovered soon enough to beam with joy. "Queen," Amber exclaimed excitedly as she knelt down on one knee. "I need you," Lavender said without preamble. "I'm at your service, Queen. I will arrive as soon as I can," Amber said without hesitation. There was no doubt in her mind as to what she must do. Every member of the Demon Knight would unconditionally obey their queen. "Have you considered what could happen to the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place if you leave?" Lavender asked, her voice laced with a layer of sternness. "And what will happen to the Purple Heart Sacred Place?" she continued. The Sea God continent wasn't as stable as they had imagined. If Amber left the Sea God continent, the Flaming Ogre Sacred Place and the Dread Ogre Sacred Place would probably be ready to make a move against them. It would be the best time for them to counterattack. However, the Demon Knight regarded serving the Queen as their highest honor. In comparison, their own sacred land was not of priority to them. Lavender could understand what Amber was thinking. So she said, "There's no need for you to come, Amber. You have to guard the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place. I only need the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place and Purple Heart Sacred Place to send a few powerful masters who are at the Soul Sea realm." A hint of disappointment appeared in Amber's eyes. But how could she disobey the Queen's direct order? She couldn't. She could only acquiesce. Lavender then instructed them about how to get to the Oracle City after they went through the transmission array. After Lavender was done talking, Amber stood up suddenly. She turned around, her back facing the three queens' statues, and looked around at the members of the Demon Knight and then called out, "Who is willing to go through the transmission array and head to the central region to serve our queen?" To Amber, serving Lavender was a supreme honor, and she knew that the other members of the Demon Knight felt the exact same way. "Amber, I'm willing to go," a powerful warrior at the Soul Sea realm of the Demon Knight called out. "Me too," said another woman in black. "Amber, Give me a chance to serve the queen. Amber. Among the many sacred places of the Sea God continent, the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place had the largest number of Soul Sea Realm masters. There were 7 powerful masters at the Soul Sea Realm in the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place, and Amber was one of the top masters of the Soul Sea Realm. In the Purple Heart Sacred Place that belonged to the human race, there were only 3 powerful masters who were at the Soul Sea Realm. Now that Amber had asked, all the powerful masters of the Soul Sea Realm were willing to go. There were also many masters of the Life and Death Realm who wanted to go along with the other 6 mighty warriors of the Soul Sea Realm. Warriors at the Life and Death Realm were considered top-level masters within the Central region, but in the Sea God continent, there were a large number of them. Amber thought about it for a moment. Lavender had only asked her not to leave the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place. But that did not mean that those warriors at the Life and Death Realm couldn't go. There was no limit to the number of people she could send out. Since the war sages of the sacred place were willing to go, she had no reason to refuse them. So Amber nodded. Other than you, there are also people from the Purple Heart Sacred Place who will be going with you. These 2 sacred lands were extremely efficient. In less than a day's time, a large group of warriors had already set off for the Heavenly Eagle Prairie. The Flaming Ogre Sacred Place and the Dread Ogre Sacred Place had already received news of the unusual movements of the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place and the Purple Heart Sacred Place. But since Amber had stayed back in the Heavenly Feather Sacred Place, the Flaming Ogre Sacred Place and the Dread Ogre Sacred Place didn't dare act rashly. It would have been different if Amber had left. Though these 2 sacred places could not fight against the war sages that had broken through in the Tower of Sin, they could still directly attack their sacred places. The elders of the ogres were very ambitious and they wouldn't miss a single chance to regain their power. This was also why Lavender had rejected Amber. 3 days later, in the sky above the chaotic ocean of stars that was on the east of the central region, a huge space windstorm suddenly whirled into existence. An enormous transmission array appeared in the air. Crack, 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 the space storm roared. Such a massive space windstorm could crush ordinary martial artists to pieces. But within this space windstorm was a squad of over 100 warriors who seemed to have completely ignored the windstorm and forcefully rushed out of the transmission array. The group consisted of over 100 warriors and was led by 9 powerful warriors of the Soul Sea Realm. Everyone else were powerful war sages. This is the central region, Zen's hometown. As Miguel glanced down at the distant coastline of the continent, he didn't know what to feel. Before Zen had come to the Sea God continent, the humans of the Purple Heart Sacred Place had always been like orphans, grabbing onto a corner on the Sea God continent to survive. He hadn't thought that the continent that Zen had lived on would be completely ruled by humans. Let's go, a powerful Soul Sea Realm master from the Demon Knight said after she had looked over the place. She didn't feel the same way as Miguel did. Their only motive that had driven the members of the Demon Knight to come here was to serve their queen. And so, this group of over 100 martial artists began to charge forward. "Yes, sir, something terrible has happened." A scream rent the air from the direction of the fish dragon sect that was located in the outermost region of the central region. "What are you panicking about?" When Master Xiao, who was the leader of the fish dragon sect, heard the scream, his face darkened as he shouted at the person who had spoken, "When we cultivate our warrior spirit, the most important thing is to stay calm. Panic will not help you achieve anything." Master Xiao fumed, his cleverness and sophistication coming to the fore. The Heavenly Evil sect had ravaged half of the central region, and many of the third-grade forces were destroyed. However, the fish dragon sect managed to survive without much damage. Chapter 747, Bitterness. But, the person reporting the information stammered. "You can't even speak properly. What a stupid good-for-nothing you are." Xiao snapped furiously. The person reporting the matter was one of his subordinates for whom he had high hopes. The fellow was usually calm and steady, but today, he was blabbering like a moron. Xiao felt something was amiss. "What happened exactly?" he asked. There are a lot of people outside, many warriors," the flustered man said. "Many warriors? What level of strength do they have?" Xiao asked again. "I'm not sure, sir. You'd better check it out personally," the man suggested. Xiao snorted coldly. His puzzlement grew. What kind of warriors are these who have scared the life out of him? He wondered. He walked out of his residence and looked up. He saw around 100 people floating in the sky. "What kind of strength?" he muttered as he looked at the army of warriors. He inhaled sharply and cold air filled his nose, making him cough violently. Xiao was a warrior at the middle stage of the virtual tribulation realm. However, when he saw the scene above him, he could not stop coughing, as if he could no longer control his body. Life and Death Realm experts. They are all life and death realm experts. There must be about 100 of them. No, the first few are not life and death realm experts. They are far more powerful. Are they the legendary Soul Sea realm experts? Xiao finally stopped coughing with great difficulty. His eyes were wide with disbelief. Oh, my goodness. After a momentary lapse, Xiao's mind began to work quickly. These martial artists can't possibly be from the central region. There's only one possibility. They must be from the 4 divine kingdoms on the other side of the chaotic ocean of stars. The heavenly evil sect had fought against World Commercial Alliance and the Cloud Hall in Oracle City. The news had spread throughout the entire central region. People had also been spreading news that the York Divine Kingdom was about to invade the central region. However, Xiao was not anxious. His sect was merely a third-grade one. Even if the York Divine Kingdom really did occupy the central region, he could choose to submit to it. Back when the heavenly evil sect was rampant, the fish dragon sect didn't fight back and chose to become a member of the former sect. Even Xiao himself had declared that he wanted to join the heavenly evil divine kingdom and become a member of the divine kingdom. When the heavenly evil sect attacked Oracle City, Xiao used the sect's affairs as an excuse to not participate in the battle. Eddie had never taken the fish dragon sect seriously. After the heavenly evil sect was destroyed, the fish dragon sect had not been affected at all. It was precisely this strategy that allowed the fish dragon sect to remain safe and sound. Therefore, he wasn't too worried when the York Divine Kingdom attacked. But he was astonished now because of the strength of the 4 divine kingdoms. If York Divine Kingdom could easily send out 10 Soul Sea Realm experts, just imagine how powerful the 4 divine kingdoms could become. Then Zen would be in trouble. The previous time, the World Commercial Alliance and the Cloud Hall had escaped, but this time, they would not be able to save themselves. Xiao had already determined their fate in his heart. Around 100 people were floating steadily in the sky. Miguel looked at the many humans below and faintly smiled to the others. I will be the one to ask for directions. After all, they are humans just like me. He said and darted down towards the fish dragon sect. The fish dragon sect had their own sect protecting array. But they didn't have any thoughts of resisting a powerful warrior of the Soul Sea realm. Miguel casually flew towards Xiao. You, tell me, where is Oracle City? He asked coolly. Xiao immediately broke into a smile. Indeed, his guess was correct. These fellows had come from the 4 divine kingdoms, and they were heading towards Oracle City. He hurriedly said, it is in the southwest. He also quickly pulled out a map from his space ring. This map was specifically drawn for Xiao and was extremely detailed. All sorts of geographical names were drawn out using golden lines. Sir, this is a map of the central region. Follow the markings on it and you will find the city, he offered with a grin. Not bad, Miguel said coldly. He wouldn't deem it necessary to be polite to a warlord. Moreover, the man in front of him was only a 5th-grade warlord. He could barely spare him so much as a glance. After putting away the map, Miguel didn't even bother thanking the helpful stranger. He casually tossed an item down and flew back up towards the sky. The 100 people immediately turned into beams of light and flew southwest. Xiao relaxed after they left. The auras of those experts were like mountains crushing them and making it difficult for them to breathe. Only when he was sure that the experts had gone far enough did Xiao take a look at that item. He discovered an ordinary-looking dagger and his eyes suddenly emitted an intense light and even his voice began to tremble. This is a sacred weapon. Hearing his words, the informant was indignant. Xiao had previously taught him that cultivating martial arts required a peaceful heart. How could Xiao himself be so excited now? Of course, he did not dare to say this out loud. He could only stare blankly at an ecstatic Xiao. Even the weakest among the 100 warriors was a life and death realm warrior. How powerful it would be when 100 of them flew up at the same time. This high speed of the army of 100 beams of light caused quite a stir in the central region. Some martial artists thought that some treasures had appeared out of nowhere. One day later, the experts finally arrived in Oracle City. There were countless craftsmen working day and night to repair the city walls, which had been destroyed during the war. Restoration would be a huge, time-consuming project. Look, what's that? A craftsman suddenly discovered the rays of light shooting in his direction, as if it was a meteor shower. When the warriors heard him, they also raised their heads and looked towards the horizon. When one of the city guards saw this, he panicked. He rushed towards the tower. There was a large bell atop the tower. The guard hastily rang it. It was a warning bell. As it rang, so did the rest of the bells in Oracle City. Soon, the tolls reverberated in the entire city. What's wrong? Have the powerhouses from the Divine Kingdom arrived? So fast. How should we deal with them this time? The martial artists of Oracle City were in a tizzy. An internal Elixir Realm warrior stood on the wall and inspected the situation. In the end, he mumbled, there are around 100 life and death realm martial artists. How can we deal with them? As the bells rang, the 3 leaders of the World Commercial Alliance and about 20 virtual Tribulation Realm elders flew over. They gathered together, looking at the experts in the sky, horrified. Zen had said that he would ask Soul Sea Realm experts to help him, but Dylan and the others knew the reality. It would be a miracle even if 1 or 2 arrived. A favor from a powerful warrior of the Soul Sea Realm wouldn't come easy. It would cost a lot. But it didn't matter how many of them would come to their rescue. Even with only 1 or 2 Soul Sea Realm experts holding the fort in Oracle City, there would be a better chance of fighting against the York Divine Kingdom. After all, the York Divine Kingdom wouldn't send too many Soul Sea Realm experts to the Central Region. Although the Divine Kingdom was far more powerful than the Central Region, the Soul Sea Realm experts were more valuable. They wouldn't dispatch all their experts just to suppress the tiny Central Region. However, it was the experts of the Divine Kingdom who had arrived before the Soul Sea Realm experts Zen had mentioned. There are 9 Soul Sea Realm experts and 90 Life and Death Realm experts. Dylan said bitterly, it doesn't matter anymore whether Zen's reinforcements come or not. Chapter 748, Conflicted. None of this group of super powerful masters would ever meet a rival in the Central Region. A master at the Life and Death Realm was equivalent to a war sage on the Sea God continent. So Letitia, who had just entered the Life and Death Realm, was equivalent to a first-level war sage. But in reality, all the Life and Death Realm masters and war sages had to experience life and death situations. They were the same as the small heavenly tribulations that Lavender had mentioned. The small heavenly tribulation was not just a life and death situation for martial artists, but also an important test for them. After the Life and Death Realm, one could advance to the Soul Sea Realm by passing a few small heavenly tribulations. However, the number of the small heavenly tribulations one had to pass was different for each warrior. Generally, in order to advance to the Soul Sea Realm, a warrior would have to go through at least 5 or 6 small heavenly tribulations. Moreover, the higher the level of one's talent, the more small heavenly tribulations one would have to go through, and the more powerful one would become after entering the Soul Sea Realm. Therefore, the number of small heavenly tribulations one had gone through also determined a martial artist's future prospects. There were many war sages in the Sea God continent, and the ones in front of them were the elite group. As per their cultivation levels, they were only a step away from the Soul Sea Realm. Most of them were 6th or 7th level war sages. They had already undergone 6 or even 7 life and death crises. Any one of these war sages was much stronger than Eddie, who had endured only 4 life and death crises. In other words, even one of them would be able to single-handedly destroy the entire Central Region. Today, more than 100 of them had gathered here and their combined power was terrifying. The warriors in the World Commercial Alliance were all shocked when they saw this scene. Dylan, Hobbs, and Haber felt their hair stand on end as a chill went down their spines. The last time they faced an attack from the Heavenly Evil Sect, they had the courage to fight back. But now, looking at these super strong warriors, they did not even have the courage to resist. The difference in power was too enormous. Any sort of resistance would be futile. Despite this, Dylan braced himself and flew forward. Bowing to the many super masters, he said, I am the leader of the World Commercial Alliance, and I am here to greet you, powerful masters from the Divine Kingdom. Miguel, who was in the lead, looked at the fat man in front of him indifferently and asked, where is Zen? Dylan was indeed strong, but only in front of the warriors in the Central Region. For Miguel, he was nothing more than a top-level warlord. In the Sea God continent, a martial artist of his level could only be used in the fight for a seat at the top floor of the Tower of Sin. Miguel had silently assessed Dylan's strength in his heart. His strength was less than any top-level warlord. He was probably inferior to Fabian or Jared. And it was even less likely for him to be able to contend with the top-level warlords of the Demon Knight and Ogre race. Dylan was hesitant to reveal Zen's whereabouts to the powerful master at the Soul Sea Realm in front of him. Frankly speaking, as the leader of the World Commercial Alliance, he should hand over Zen to them right away. For the sake of the safety of the World Commercial Alliance, he had to make the right decision. He assumed that these people from the Divine Kingdom wouldn't be interested in the World Commercial Alliance. However, Zen had made a vital contribution to the World Commercial Alliance. Although Dylan considered himself a businessman, it was still difficult for him to betray Zen like this. But as the leader of the World Commercial Alliance, he should be responsible for the existence of his people in his land, and there was no way he would let the organization down. "Brother," Hobbs called out to Dylan. How could they not understand Dylan's hesitation? Hobbs knew that they could not fight these powerful masters even if they wanted to protect Zen. It would be like striking a stone with an egg. Dylan let out a sigh. He thought, that's it. Sorry Zen. He considered that Zen wouldn't blame it on him, because he was right now in the Oracle City. Even if he wanted to escape now, it was too late. However, before he could speak, a flash of light came shooting out of Oracle City. It was none other than Zen. Many of the elders and the 3 leaders of the World Commercial Alliance turned to see him. He appeared to be rather calm and composed, while they were astonished. How could this guy be so calm in such situation? It looked like Zen wasn't perturbed at the prospect of facing over 100 powerful masters from the Divine Kingdom. Did Zen really know a way to defeat them? The many stewards and martial artists of the World Commercial Alliance were also secretly observing the situation in the sky. It spelled doom for every martial artist. Even a blind man would know that Oracle City was in danger. Zen flew towards Miguel under the watchful eyes of everyone present. He stopped in front of him and smiled sheepishly. The last time when we parted at the Heavenly Eagle Prairie, I thought that it would be a long time before we would meet again. I didn't think I would need your help so soon. I am deeply ashamed, he apologized. Miguel smiled gently. Mr. Luo, you are too humble. The environment you have created for our human race on the Sea God continent will benefit us for generations. We feel obliged to do our little bit in return, he said graciously. Zen had changed the situation in the Tower of Sin all on his own, which had far-reaching effects and a big influence on Purple Heart's sacred place. Given time, the humans would become one of the top clans in the Sea God continent in the future. How could the Purple Heart sacred place not be grateful to Zen? It was due to this reason that Miguel had come personally. Zen smiled lightly. Red dots of light began to emit from his body and started to intertwine and condense. Soon they turned into a slender body. It was none other than Zen's sword spirit, Lavender. The moment Lavender appeared, the 6 powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm and dozens of Life and Death realm warriors from the Demon Knight knelt down in the air. They bowed to her and spoke in unison, "Greetings, my queen." Dozens of masters at the Life and Death realm warriors and several powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm just bowed down respectfully to Zen's sword spirit. But why? Dylan, Hobbs and Haber, as well as many elders and martial artists from the World Commercial Alliance were all stumped. They couldn't figure out what was happening for a while. This scene had completely upturned their understanding of the world. What the heck was going on? These warriors didn't seem to belong to the York Divine Kingdom. Were these the reinforcements that Zen had mentioned? If they were just reinforcements, why were they being so respectful to Zen's sword spirit? Why did they have to be so courteous? In the central region, there was no divine kingdom. Strength was the deciding factor for everything for martial artists. Only those with great strength would be respected and obtain higher ranks. Even Eddie, who was considered to be the mightiest of them all, did not have the authority to make people kneel down and worship him. After all, everyone here was a warrior, and no one was willing to take orders from anybody else. Eddie was indeed powerful, but he didn't have the stature to enjoy such great reverence. The idea of making a group of martial artists at the virtual tribulation realm kneel and worship Eddie was preposterous. He didn't possess the ability to gain such influence on such a group, let alone on other masters of the Life and Death realm. To do so, one had to establish a divine kingdom and set up a monarchy, only then would it be possible to make all the warriors in the central region submit. However, it would take a long time to consolidate imperial power and make all the warriors in the central region acknowledge and respect the monarch. Even so, the really powerful masters would not bow to the emperor in such a manner. But these powerful warriors of the Soul Sea realm were kneeling in front of Lavender. It was really happening right before everyone's eyes. The devout look on their faces came from their hearts. It was definitely not something one could fake. Dylan was speechless at this sight, although he really wanted to shout, "Oh! Heavens and earth! Somebody tell me just what happened." No matter how much they racked their brains, nobody would have ever guessed that the sword spirit inside Zen was the queen of the Demon Knight, the spiritual totem that ruled over the entire Demon Knight race. In the upper world, even the world lords, who were much more powerful than Lavender, had to salute her, let alone the masters at the Soul Sea realm. It was a perfectly normal thing for them to do. Lavender glanced at some of the powerful masters at the Soul Sea realm and said lightly, "Please rise." Only then did the masters of the Demon Knight stand up and respectfully retreat to the side. Dylan hesitantly floated over to Zen, and asked in a trembling voice, "Zen, what's going on?" He had heard Miguel addressing Zen as Mr. Luo. Dylan suddenly wondered if it was appropriate for him to address Zen by his first name, seeing as he was inferior to the powerful beings present here. But Zen was only 20 years old. Should he be referring to Zen as Master Luo? This was too weird. He wouldn't even treat Eddie with such reverence. Dylan was truly conflicted. Chapter 749, A Sumptuous Meal. Zen had no idea what was going on in Dylan's mind. As he heard Dylan stammering, Zen knew that he was probably taken aback by Miguel's group. Zen tried to reassure him by saying, Master Shi, I would like to introduce you my friends. We have been fighting side by side for the past 2 years. Friends. Dylan felt happy hearing that Zen had made new friends while he was away. He actually felt overjoyed and his worries vanished quickly. With such a group of mighty warriors around, he didn't have to be afraid of the York Divine Kingdom anymore. Now he was dying to know where Zen had been in the past 2 years to have made such a group of friends. And why these mighty warriors would be willing to make friends with a guy who had a much lower cultivation level. Hobbs had always been impatient. He wanted to talk to Zen right away and have him tell him the whole story. But there were over 100 strong warriors before him, so he remained quiet hoping he would have the opportunity to do so later on. As for Haber, he was the quiet one. His expression didn't change much when he saw these mighty warriors. But actually, he was just as shocked to see Miguel's group as anyone else. Friends. Great. Dylan was stunned for a moment and then, with a smile from ear to ear, he said, if you are Zen's friends, you are our friends too. Welcome to the World Commercial Alliance. We'd like you to join us for dinner. You will be our honored guests. Please come in. Dylan didn't dare to snub Miguel and his warriors. However, as he spoke, Miguel and the others didn't react. They didn't even nod or show a polite smile. Dylan might be famous in the Central region as one of the 3 leaders of the World Commercial Alliance and was a man of great influence. But in Miguel's eyes, he was a minor character without importance. The warriors from the Sea God continent only respected Zen and Lavender and would not bow to anyone else. Dylan was getting more and more embarrassed. He scratched the back of his head and turned to look at Zen for help. Seeing that Dylan was starting to feel embarrassed, Zen smiled and said, Miguel, you must be tired from your journey. You came a long way from your home. I would like to invite you to a gathering in the city. Only then did Miguel nod. He and his group followed Zen and flew towards Oracle City. The grand hall of the Oracle City had been beautifully decorated for the occasion. Over 100 wide tables were arranged in a single line. Beautiful female servants were shuffling through them, and exquisite dishes were being served. The World Commercial Alliance put on its utmost dedication to please these mighty warriors. No one had ever seen such grandeur in the history of the World Commercial Alliance. The chefs had prepared all kinds of exquisite dishes that were being served one after the other. Most of the ingredients were rarities that could only be found at the World Commercial Alliance's warehouse. The meat dishes were sumptuous and delicious, whose raw materials came from level 7 or level 8 beasts. Oracle City was a busy hub in the central region where all the people with great talent would go, including the chefs preparing the dinner. Their dishes were naturally of the highest quality. Dylan and the other warriors in the central region thought that these warriors from the Sea God continent would act rather indifferent, but they were wrong. The warriors from the Sea God continent could be great at fighting, but they had no manners at the table. They gulped down the food without chewing or savoring it. Dylan didn't care about how much they were spending in pleasing them. The wealth of the World Commercial Alliance far exceeded that of any sect. But he never thought that these warriors at the Life and Death Realm and Soul Sea Realm would behave in such manner. Their backs slumped on the table, and with their heads nearly touching their plates, they devoured every dish in just a few seconds. Zen, however, knew exactly why they behaved like this. Miguel looked down on the cultivation level of the warriors in the central region. It was difficult for a warrior to reach the Life and Death Realm in the central region, let alone the Soul Sea Realm. Even Eddie, at the Life and Death Realm, had been considered as the #1 warrior in the central region. But things were different on the Sea God continent. Warriors at the Life and Death Realm were considered war sages. There were simply a lot of war sages on the Sea God continent. On the other hand, the entire Sea God continent had always been in chaos. Conflicts were common all across the continent as all the races would fight for the control of the Tower of Sin. Every race needed to fight for survival. In all the sacred places on the continent, there was the need for strong warriors. The most important thing for them was to develop their cultivation methods and train warriors that would fight. No one cared about eating good food or drinking good wine. For them, as long as there was food on the table, everything was fine. Even if it tasted bad, they would eat in order to survive. In reality, the sea god continent possessed many powerful warriors and they were good at battling, but in other areas such as literature, music, arts, and so on, they were poor. Their people had no interest or time to waste in such mundane things, unlike the central region. The priority of the warriors on the sea god continent was to grow stronger and survive. Warriors in the central region, however, could focus on their cultivation methods as well as develop their artistic side. After the human race occupied the central region, they were not in any danger of surviving. There were only disputes among humans, but even these were minor and still gave them time and energy to develop a rich and colorful culture. As the night went on, the warriors from the sea god continent relaxed and started to enjoy the party. Everyone felt overjoyed and the atmosphere became lively. Miguel was even chatting and laughing with Dylan, asking him about the current affairs of the human race in the central region. Dylan had a glib tongue, so the two of them had a pleasant chat. After all dishes had been served, hundreds of beautiful women wearing long gowns entered the hall. They danced gracefully to the sounds of upbeat instrumental music. That night, all the warriors of the World Commercial Alliance exhausted their energy trying to entertain this group of warriors. Zen was seated at the head of the host's table with a beaming smile on his face. He was enjoying the party but there was something worrying him. He was concerned about Letitia. He knew she was being taken care of by the servant girls, but he couldn't help but picture her lying quietly in bed, unable to move. After dealing with the warriors of the York Divine Kingdom, Zen had to personally go to the 4 Divine Kingdoms and investigate the origins of the ancient jade. Before doing so, Zen had to ask Miguel and the others to see if they could treat Letitia. The party lasted the whole night. For warriors like them, even if they didn't sleep for months, their spirits would still be full. In the heavenly stellar palace, when Miguel felt Letitia's pulse, he shook his head and said worriedly, "She is not seriously ill, but her life energy is very weak. If you want to save her, you must find something to replenish her life energy." "Is there such a thing on the sea god continent?" Zen asked eagerly. Miguel shook his head again. "I haven't seen anything like that on the continent and I don't know for sure if something like that exists in the dark nether cave. I will send someone to look for it. If we find it, I'll have people send it to you." Zen smiled forcefully. He was grateful for Miguel's efforts, but he was not sure if anyone would be able to find it or if it existed in the dark nether cave. They had no time to waste. A person's life energy was constantly being consumed. Although he used Hansen's ancient jades to replenish Letitia's life energy, that wouldn't last forever. They needed to find more ancient jades and do so quickly. Right now Zen had to go to the 4 Divine Kingdoms to search for clues regarding that ancient jade. After the warriors from the sea god continent had settled down in Oracle City, Zen was filled with anxiety, hoping that Master Wallace of the York Divine Kingdom would come to the central region soon. Zen would be able to go on investigating the ancient jade once this problem had been solved. He had waited for almost a month now, but nobody came. He was very anxious and regretted breaking the 8-diagram mirror. He could have used it to provoke Master Wallace, urging him to quickly pass through the chaotic ocean of stars. As Zen waited anxiously, Miguel and the others were enjoying their time in Oracle City. The central region might not be the best place for cultivation, but it was a very special place to enjoy life. For the first time in their lives, they didn't need to worry about surviving and could appreciate a leisurely life, experimenting the delicacies and customs of the central region. As for the warriors of the Demon Knight, they weren't in a hurry either. They were accompanying their queen and that was their greatest honor as they were afraid that she would drive them away. Miguel and 100 mighty warriors had stayed in the central region for 33 days now. 6 beams of light were seen swiftly advancing in the sky above the chaotic ocean of stars. Passing through the chaotic ocean of stars was not an easy task. Even though the star storm had stopped, there were still berserk beasts on the way to face. Some of the beasts were level 10, while others were even level 11. Their strength was comparable to warriors at the Soul Sea Realm. Even a mighty warrior at the Soul Sea Realm like Master Wallace had to be careful and avoid provoking those fierce beasts. Chapter 750, Master Abraham. Among the 6 warriors, 2 of them were at the Soul Sea Realm, while the other 4 were at the level of Life and Death Realm. It seemed that the warriors from the central region had guessed it right, the 4 Divine Kingdoms truly didn't take the central region seriously. In their eyes, the location of the Divine Kingdoms was the center of this world. They believed that there was practically nothing across the vast ocean. A lot of warriors originated from the 4 Divine Kingdoms had been to Sky Northern region for exploration during the remote ages until the Middle Ages. That sort of place, however, was simply impossible to find under any opportunities. Thus, there were very few warriors from the divine kingdoms willing to go to the sky northern region, let alone pay a high cost to attack the said region. Thus, since the ancient times, the warriors that came to the sky northern region were all those that offended the divine kingdoms and had chosen to flee. Since they had nowhere else to go, hiding in the sky northern region was their best alternative. Only this time, it was different. The Holy Maiden of the York Divine Kingdom ordered Master Wallace to annihilate the Cloud Hall, a small 4th grade sect. Initially, Master Wallace could not understand why the Holy Maiden was hostile towards a small sect in the sky northern region that was tens of thousands of miles away. But later on, he soon realized that the young man named Zen had offended her. For this rationale alone, Master Wallace would not personally step into the sky northern region. Being a mighty warrior at the Soul Sea realm, he didn't need to listen to the Holy Maiden. But this time he came to the sky northern region. And this was naturally because of the secret in Zen's mind. He happened to take a glimpse of what was in Zen's mind at that incident where a strand of his soul was devoured. That was a huge temptation. Every time he thought of this, he could not suppress the excitement in his heart. He knew he had a better perspective. If he decided to keep this secret on his own, his future would be bright. Even the York Divine Kingdom would be trampled under his feet one day. And he was looking forward to it. The 4 divine kingdoms were undeniably too far away from the sky northern region. Moreover, Master Wallace and his group had to avoid some dangerous areas along the way, so they tried their best not to provoke those powerful vicious beasts in the ocean. Several days later, the 6 warriors of the York Divine Kingdom finally appeared on the east side of the sky northern region. Wallace, there seems to be a small sect there. Let's have a look. The other warrior at the Soul Sea realm, who came with Master Wallace, was Master Abraham. They were close friends, and it was only because of Master Wallace's invitation that he came here with him. These warriors of the York Divine Kingdom all perceived that the trip to the sky northern region was not dangerous at all. They realized that this was a place where even warriors at the life and death realm could rule over the entire area. To them, they could do whatever they wanted in the sky northern region. They even agreed that in comparison, the chaotic ocean of stars was much more dangerous than the sky northern region. In the far east of the sky northern region, there was a 3rd grade sect widely known as the Fish Dragon sect. And it didn't escape under the watchful eye of Master Abraham. Thus, he casually mentioned this small sect. Master Wallace let out a cold laugh and suddenly rushed into the Fish Dragon sect as if curiosity had gotten into him. He haughtily landed on a space in the Great Hall of the Fish Dragon sect. His face was devoid of respect as his eyes swiftly scanned the area. Bang! Master Wallace looked like a child. But in reality, he was already an old man who had lived for more than 1,000 years. And he could also be described as an ancient tycoon. With his feet being the center, the hard ground started to grumble and split open. Large cracks covered the whole floor of the hall. Soon after, spider-like cracks adorned the wall, even reaching up to the roof. "Who is it? Who dares to trespass into the Fish Dragon sect?" exclaimed the leader of the Fish Dragon sect furiously. When Master Shao rushed out of the Great Hall, his furious expression immediately vanished like smoke into thin air. He let out a flattering smile. But he was silently cursing in his mind. Dang, why do warriors at the Soul Sea realm appear again? Since when are there so many mighty warriors at the Soul Sea realm in the central region? Even though he was seething in anger, he exuded a warm demeanor. After encountering over 100 mighty warriors last time, he discovered that his mind had become stronger. So meeting these 6 warriors, he did not lose his composure. "Master, may I know what you want from us?" Master Shao asked Master Wallace with a fake smile on his face. Master Wallace glanced at him and asked coldly, "How do I get to Oracle City?" "Oracle City again? Are these people also looking for Zen?" "A while ago, the Divine Kingdom has already sent over 100 warriors over. How come it still isn't enough?" Master Shao wondered. But then again, after the 100 or so warriors had headed to Oracle City about a month ago, there was no latest news about Zen. Master Shao was dying to know what had happened, but he didn't dare to ask the warriors before him. He knew clearly that curiosity might kill the cat. If he were to speak too much, he might bring about a calamity that could kill himself and even destroy the entire clan. He quickly took out a map. And as he respectfully handed it to the boy at the Soul Sea realm, he grinned and explained, "This is the map of the entire central region. The Oracle City has already been marked out on the map. You can follow the map and find it." Master Wallace nonchalantly took the map and shook it a bit before memorizing it. He snorted and turned into a streak of light, flying straight in the direction of Oracle City, followed by his companions. Unlike Miguel, Master Wallace didn't leave any rewards behind. He didn't even spare Master Xiao a glance before vanishing. Master Xiao spat at them soon after the 6 warriors left. Previously, those 100 warriors had bestowed him with a low-grade sacred weapon. These 2 warriors at the Soul Sea realm were so stingy. In less than a day, the 6 warriors had quickly approached Oracle City. Now standing at the entrance of the city, Master Wallace surveyed around the place. At that time when he was in the 8th diagram mirror, he vividly remembered the surrounding environment of Oracle City. Although the World Commercial Alliance had cleaned up the battlefield recently, the city didn't change that much. He was more than sure this was Oracle City. I just don't know if that young man is still in Oracle City, Master Wallace said indifferently. Master Abraham then probed, what kind of secret does that guy hold that makes you so concerned about him? Surprised, Master Wallace just chuckled. How could he have any secrets? I'm just doing things for the Holy Maiden. Master Abraham declared coldly, those words of yours are good enough to fool the Holy Maiden, but don't you try to use them to fool me. You and I have been good friends for so many years. And yet, here you are, trying to hide it from me. Noticing that Master Abraham was slightly displeased, Master Wallace finally opened his mouth and confided, all right. Since I'm willing to invite you to the Central Region, I naturally want to share that secret with you. That secret has something to do with the dragon lineage human. Dragon lineage human. Hearing his words, Master Abraham was stunned, but he soon changed his expression into one of disbelief. Wallace, stop joking with me. The untold tales of the dragon lineage human were the greatest secret of the 4 divine kingdoms. The history of the 4 divine kingdoms was much longer than that of the Central Region. On that continent, all sorts of civilizations had existed for countless years. Therefore, the history of the divine kingdoms perfectly depicted its remote ages, middle times, and modern times. The dragon lineage human had been enemies with the divine kingdoms since the remote ages. Then during the middle times, they suddenly waged an earth-shaking war with the 7 divine kingdoms. It was said that a genuine dragon even appeared to help them out. And this was when 3 divine kingdoms were annihilated. The remaining 4 divine kingdoms only gained the upper hand during modern times. And that was also the time when they completely exterminated the dragon lineage human, turning it into a piece of history and legend within the divine kingdoms. Even if it was just a legend, the dragon lineage human still had many inheritances and ruins, and these things were like gold mines that attracted warriors of the divine kingdoms to excavate them. Thus any secret related to the dragon lineage human was incomparably precious in the divine kingdoms. Through the years, their warriors had dug up far too many benefits from the dragon lineage human. Why would I joke around with you? Wait till I catch this brat and search his soul, then you'll know. Master Wallace's face revealed a smile brimming with confidence. Seeing how confident Master Wallace was, Master Abraham also believed in him by 20 to 30%. Anyway, there were a lot of warriors of divine kingdoms that had offended other strong warriors. And they resorted to hiding in the Sky Northern region. But here, those warriors would eventually die. Maybe this secret was brought over by those warriors and captured by the warriors in the Central region. Since that guy has the secret of the dragon lineage human, his strength should not be weak. I wonder if he has any helpers. On the other hand, a hint of caution appeared on Master Abraham's face. Ha ha, hearing the words coming from Master Abraham, Master Wallace burst out laughing. That guy's strength is not bad. He is at the middle stage of the virtual tribulation realm, and yet he killed a warrior at the 4th grade of the life and death realm. Really? The eyes of Master Abraham flickered. Regardless of whether it was the virtual tribulation realm or the life and death realm, he didn't care. However, according to Master Wallace, the guy himself was at the middle stage of the virtual tribulation realm, yet he was able to kill a warrior at the 4th grade of the life and death realm. This was very impressive. Chapter 751. Answer my questions. In all the 4 kingdoms, for a martial artist at the virtual tribulation realm to be able to annihilate another warrior at the life and death realm was only something from the historical legends. It wasn't just any normal occurrence. For that to happen was groundbreaking. Even Master Abraham could have never done such a thing. So when he heard Master Wallace's words, he became deeply interested in Zen. At such a young age, he already possessed unbelievable strength. Perhaps, it was because of the secret inheritance of the dragon lineage human. You must not worry, Abraham. I don't plan on deceiving you. When have I ever done such insolence? I believe myself to be trustworthy. Master Wallace suddenly rose to a higher height after his statement. He took a sharp breath as he looked onto the Oracle City, facing it head-on. A steady stream of energy gathered around him, and the sky overflowed out of nowhere. Then, with all his might, he roared, "Zen Luo! Zen Luo! Zen Luo! Come out, show yourself!" Like a thunderclap, his voice boomed in the ears of many martial artists. It echoed in the entire Oracle City and everyone heard him clearly. The civilians, on the other hand, suffered. The reverberation of his voice exploded right in front of their foreheads like bolts of lightning. All of their eyes rolled to the back of their heads and most of them had fainted due to the intensity of Master Wallace's voice. Even the weaker martial artists experienced great discomfort. Under the vibrations of the roar, they all felt their blood rushing up and down their body. Blood had come out of a few ears as their heart rates rapidly increased. It was without question, he was showing off. If a Soul Sea Realm martial artist decided to show off, what could he cause? How powerful could his aura be? For a period of time, he basked in his immense strength. Master Wallace was beyond proud of what he could do. He knew that all the warriors his voice reached trembled in fear. All of them didn't act recklessly in the York Divine Kingdom. It was just like a ridiculously wealthy man in the big city. Where he lived, it was a challenge to make something of himself. Everyone was someone, but when he went to the smaller city, he felt like he could do anything. People out there were so easily amused. In the world of martial artists, this kind of action became ruthlessness and shamelessness. Feeling entertained by what Master Wallace had just done, Master Abraham laughed and also flew up right beside him. He also absorbed a portion of energy. "Wallace, you're in a good mood. I'd like to give it a try too. Hey, Zen Luo, Zen Luo, Zen Luo, come out and show yourself. What are you so afraid of? Come out." Right behind them were 4 life and death realm martial artists who glanced at each other with faint smiles on their faces. As followers, they did not dare to steal the limelight from Master Wallace and Master Abraham. But as members of the Divine Kingdom, they also had a strong sense of superiority no matter where they went. It was going to be a good show. In any case, killing martial artists in the central region was like cutting vegetables for them. They were not in a hurry at all. They wanted to see how the martial artists in Oracle City would react first. They weren't disappointed. The Oracle City fell completely silent. At that time, not a single martial artist in such a big city appeared. It was almost like a ghost town. Just like a turtle hiding in its shell. Master Wallace's face revealed a wicked grin. His physique made him look like a small boy, but the expression on his face said otherwise. He was a ferocious warrior. "Ha, he's not showing up," Master Abraham cackled. "The martial artists of the Sky Northern region aren't only weak, but also incomparably cowardly." Just as he finished mocking Zen, a flash of light came into view. The light came closer each minute, heading straight for Master Wallace. The one who came to their sight was none other than Zen. A vague smile hung across his face, but his heart was joy-filled. Their arrival was something he looked forward to. Finally, they had come. Having been able to fight Zen in the past, Master Wallace knew him quite well. Seeing that Zen was alone, Master Wallace smiled and said, "You're quite sensible. Since you know you can't run away, you've taken the initiative to come to where we are. I'll leave your corpse sprawled out in the open for everyone to see after I get what's in your head." With a faint hint of mockery, Zen's eyes flashed. "My corpse? But Master Wallace, I'm not planning on dying today." "What a joke. You don't have the final say," Master Abraham said with disdain. Even if Zen had the ability to kill a life and death realm master with his extraordinary strength of virtual tribulation realm, Master Abraham still looked down on him. "How about we just leave my life alone and let me decide how long I live? What do you think?" Zen said nonchalantly, with the same sly smile still plastered on his face. "Your life is already in our hands, you insignificant ant," Master Wallace retorted, extending his hand, slowly waving it towards Zen's body. "I didn't come here to talk rubbish with you." Zen suddenly restrained the smile on his face. "I need some answers." The 6 masters of the York Divine Kingdom were a bit baffled when they heard Zen's words. They gave one another these curious glances. Did they hear him right? What could he want answers for? What questions did he have for them? Death was lurking in the corner for him, and he still wanted to ask questions. Since it was Zen, Master Wallace grew rather curious. "What do you want to ask?" Zen took out a few pieces of broken ancient jade from his space ring. The jade had already shattered and wasn't whole anymore. It was Hansen who presented the jade to Zen. Letitia had absorbed its life force, but Zen kept the broken pieces so he could, later on, unravel their mystery. When Zen took out the jade, both Wallace and Abraham, along with the 4 life and death realm martial artists that accompanied them, were astounded. The same exact expression appeared across their faces. What? How did you get the jade? Master Wallace asked, his widened eyes focused on the jade in Zen's hand. Zen's heartbeat increased rapidly. As expected, Master Wallace knew the gem in his hand. He was certain that it came from the Divine Kingdoms, and that there were even more. What exactly is the ancient jade? Where can it be obtained? Is it true that there are more that can be found in the 4 Divine Kingdoms? Zen asked all of his questions in one breath. I don't know how you managed to obtain the jade, little boy. I don't have to answer your questions, Master Wallace sneered. Could you please tell me? Zen asked politely. His eyes conveyed his sincerity. The ancient jade is no big secret within the Divine Kingdom. However, telling someone who is about to die is meaningless, Master Wallace coldly said. You're wrong. Zen shook his finger and laughed. It's actually pretty meaningful if you do. Master Abraham only frowned. Compared to Master Wallace, he was much more careful. However, seeing Zen's expression and tone, he felt that there was something that wasn't adding up. So, he asked, what is the meaning of this? I'll spare the life of the one who tells me first among the 6 of you. Zen smiled proudly like a kid, but his expression reeked of hidden savagery. All 6 of them shared the same expression once again. They were all overwhelmed by Zen's words. Did they all hear him correctly? Master Wallace hissed, what? Do you mind saying that again? A young man at the virtual tribulation realm had dared to show disrespect towards the masters of life and death realm and soul sea realm. For a moment, they thought the screws inside Zen's head were all unhinged. What a crazy boy. Okay, then, I said, whoever tells me the secret of the ancient jade, I'll spare his life, Zen repeated. Take this as a race. What a waste of time. Abraham, your soul-searching skill can explore that guy's mind to the greatest extent. I'll capture him, and then you can sift through his soul. The secrets Zen had inside his mind were not a secret to Master Wallace. He was also aware that the dragon's soul wasn't easy to deal with. The last time his soul entered Zen's mind, it was killed. However, that soul he used had been strengthened by the spirit container. It was strong already. That was why Master Wallace wasn't confident to enter Zen's mind once again. If his soul was to be devoured by the dragon, then it wasn't worth the risk. Meanwhile, Master Abraham had practiced a secret technique that could save a soul from being gobbled. That was the reason why Master Wallace brought him along. Otherwise, regardless of the friendship between them, he never shared any secret with him. As soon as Zen noticed that Master Wallace was about to make a move, a look of regret engulfed his face. It seems that no one wants to answer my questions. Pity, I had no idea you didn't value your lives that much. Well, then. Come out, all of you. Chapter 752, Bewitching Domain. The speed at which a Soul Sea Realm warrior could fly was unprecedented. Any warrior that had to chase someone at such a high level could never hope to catch up. Even a Soul Sea Realm warrior himself would have difficulty chasing after someone of the same level. Taking this fact into consideration, the forces of the Sea God continent had made the necessary arrangements to prevent the escape of the York Divine Kingdom's powerhouses. Over 100 strong warriors hid within the nearby surroundings through the use of the Demon Knight's secret treasure. This treasure was known as the Emerald Tree that could be used to conceal a warrior's aura. The seeds, once scattered, would germinate and turn into full-grown trees in just 3 days. These trees were short, about the height of a person, and were special in such a way that they allowed the people standing underneath to hide their aura. These trees were very effective when it came to planning an ambush, but they could not be used for escape. After all, the growth cycle of 3 days was too slow. If one ran for his life, he wouldn't need it. From these trees, over 100 strong imposing auras were suddenly released and surrounded Master Wallace, Master Abraham, and the others of the York Divine Kingdom. 6 Soul Sea Realm Masters from the Demon Knight, as well as Miguel and a few others from the Purple Heart Sacred Place, spread out their own domains. A domain was something that a warrior could have once he reached the Soul Sea Realm. Each domain was unique to the warrior and was often based on the kind of cultivation technique he most excelled at. It was these various domains from the Demon Knight and Purple Heart Sacred Place Masters that enveloped both Master Wallace and Master Abraham. The 2 York Divine Kingdom Masters were at a loss at their current situation. They had never foreseen such a thing coming. Zen was actually able to gather 9 mighty Soul Sea Realm warriors. There were only a few Soul Sea Realm Masters in the 4 Divine Kingdoms, and Master Wallace and Master Abraham were 2 of them. Both held important positions in the York Divine Kingdom and enjoyed prestige that was even higher than the Holy Maidens. Breaking through to the Soul Sea Realm was comparable to the transcendence of a mere mortal to an almighty immortal. If it weren't for the abnormalities that had occurred in the universe, those in the Soul Sea Realm would have already ascended into the upper world by now. Master Wallace did not hold the warriors of Central Region in high regard. He knew that a mere life and death realm warrior had recently been able to stir up chaos in the continent. The only reason he brought Master Abraham along was his wariness towards the dragon that resided within Zen's mind. In the eyes of warriors from the 4 divine kingdoms, the Sky Northern region was as safe as their own backyard. They strutted into the region as if they owned it. Their strength and power had gone into their heads as they arrogantly imposed their authority over all warriors in the continent. But their high and mighty airs had come crashing down the moment these powerful Soul Sea Realm warriors emerged from the trees and ambushed them. They could only rub their eyes and wonder if they were perhaps dreaming. How could such an unbelievable thing happen? The Central Region was not a conducive area to produce Soul Sea Realm warriors given its limited resources. How was it that 9 high-level warriors suddenly appeared before their very eyes? Miguel led the warriors that surrounded the York Divine Kingdom Masters. Zen smiled faintly at his enemy's helpless position. Last chance, where did the ancient jade come from? He asked once again. The wheels in the heads of both Master Abraham and Master Wallace started turning. They did not have the patience to answer Zen's question and only thought about how to escape their current predicament. The life and death realm warriors behind them, however, thought differently. The only ones who could face against Soul Sea Realm warriors were Soul Sea Realm warriors themselves. Those in the lower cultivation realms could only expect to be reduced to cannon fodder. I know, one of the life and death realm warriors piped up. That's the life stone that was dug out from the Feather Emperor's secret land. Zen's eyebrows shot up. Feather Emperor's secret land, is that located within the 4 divine kingdoms? Master Wallace and Master Abraham both turned and glared at their noisy ally. You think he'll let you off just because you told him what that bloody piece of jade was? A trace of fear crossed over the man's features, but his desperation for survival won over. No matter what the master said, he had to hope that the information he gave would be enough to convince Zen to let him live. The Feather Emperor's secret land is in the center of the 4 divine kingdoms. In other words, it's in the Feather Holy Sea. It sounded as though the life stone was quite famous in the 4 divine kingdoms. Zen suddenly had an urge to go visit. However, what he wanted right now was a preliminary verification. If it turned out that the ancient jade was actually extremely rare and hard to find, then he would have to think of his other options. Entering the Dragon Soar arena to fly into the genuine dragon world was one of his options. His current strength couldn't qualify him to enter the upper world, but if it was for Letitia, he would scour the ends of the earth to make her better. He gave Master Wallace a faint smile. Since he answered my question, I'll let him off. Kill everyone but that one guy who answered me. The other life and death realm warriors immediately felt regret at their decision of staying silent. The life stone wasn't necessarily a secret among the 4 divine kingdoms. Ordinary martial artists just did not have the luxury of interacting with these kinds of stones very often. They should have told Zen when he asked. However, it was already too late. As Zen gave his command, the York Divine Kingdom warriors erupted into a frenzy and launched their desperate counterattack upon his oncoming forces. The 2 Soul Sea Realm Masters instantly released their own domains, and Master Wallace actually dared to envelop Zen with his as he charged towards him. He had no idea how this warrior at the middle stage of Virtual Tribulation Realm got the authority to command these Life and Death Realm and Soul Sea Realm Masters. However, there was no time to speculate. He had to eliminate Zen if he wanted to live. This scrawny young man was surely no match for a master like him. And he was right. Zen knew he was no match for the Soul Sea Realm Master. He could perhaps take on a 4th or 5th level Life and Death Realm warrior, but a Soul Sea Realm Master was a whole other story. There was just no way. So he smartly retreated and a figure immediately took his place. Miguel, who had the appearance of a transcendent being, stood protectively in front of Zen. Miguel gave his opponent a faint smirk. You should fight with me. Master Wallace hesitated at the sight of another person. However, the frustration he felt at the thought of not being able to eliminate Zen allowed him to quickly get back on his feet. He quickly halted in his tracks and slapped his palm on the ground. A flash of brown-colored light swept through the battlefield, signaling the confrontation that brewed between the powerful Soul Sea Realm warriors. None of the Life and Death Realm warriors could do anything but watch in combined fear and awe. This was not a fight that they could interfere in if they valued their lives. Master Wallace's light diffused around him. Bewitching domain. He roared as the light expanded at an extremely fast rate. Those that were too slow and were enveloped by the bewitching domain immediately felt their heart beat wildly. A haze enveloped their minds and they had the sudden urge to attack the person nearest to them. It was because of the extremely powerful bewitching domain. Those drawn into the brown light were doomed to lose their sense of logic and mindlessly attack the people nearest to them. Given enough time, Master Wallace could envelop the entire Oracle City with his bewitching domain and wreak havoc all over the place. It would only take less than an hour for all martial artists to kill each other. However, he couldn't really do that right now. Not when he was currently faced with 9 Soul Sea Realm warriors. These were warriors on a whole other level who would not lose their minds in the haze. Chapter 753, Ganging Up. The many powerful masters at the Soul Sea Realm who were trapped in the bewitching domain felt their hearts beating rapidly at first. However, they soon returned to normal. Powerful warriors at the Soul Sea Realm fought differently from ordinary warriors. Their fights started with the suppression of each other's domains, and this was followed by the collision with life vitality and physical bodies. A domain's impact on a martial artist's strength was enormous, and each martial artist's domain was different. Some warriors' domains could be very aggressive to the point of being insane and indomitable, while some other warriors' domains only played a subsidiary role. The bewitching domain of Master Wallace could disrupt his opponent's state of mind. His domain could cause a huge change in the mind of a powerful warrior at the Soul Sea Realm in a one-on-one fight. It could make the opponent extremely irritable for a short time and make it hard for him to draw out his strength. However, there were 9 powerful masters of the Soul Sea Realm in Master Wallace's domain. As the bewitching domain was spread across the 9 of them, its impact would be reduced and wouldn't be much of a threat. Miguel gently waved both of his hands within Master Wallace's domain, sending out colorful strips, which spread out in spirals. These colorful spirals spun around Miguel several times, and then suddenly shone with rays of dazzling light. Miguel looked like a small sun, shining so brightly that nobody could even open their eyes. A domain that can disrupt one's mind. That is quite interesting, but it's too weak. Ha ha. Miguel's confident voice rang out from the light. The Purple Heart Sacred Place of the human race was a low-ranked sacred place in the Sea God continent, but it didn't mean that the elite martial artists of the human race were weak, because otherwise the Purple Heart Sacred Place would have been destroyed long ago. The human race would have been wiped out of the Sea God continent for good, but they were able to sustain until now, largely due to the fact that they had relied on these 3 top-notch masters of the Soul Sea Realm. Miguel's strength might be inferior to that of Amber's, as well as that of the leaders of the Flaming Ogre Sacred Place and the Dread Ogre Sacred Place, but it was significant enough to make him enter into the top 10 rankings of the Sea God continent. Soul Division Domain. The way the Soul Sea Realm's domain worked was that one could use one's own strength to carve out one's own territory. By relying on one's own strength, one could change the rules of the domain within a limited range. This was also what was called snatching a turf from the world. Of course, the Soul Sea Realm's domain had a limited range of influence, and the changeable rules were also relatively limited. If the domain's influence could be spread throughout the entire universe and the rules could be changed as per one's will, then the cultivator would gain control of the natural law of the heavens. Miguel's soul division domain was able to create countless souls within the range that was covered by the light. Countless Miguels appeared in the shining light. It looked like there was an army of thousands of Miguels. As soon as they appeared, these souls began to surround Master Wallace. Master Wallace was shocked to see this aggressive group of souls rushing towards him. He tapped the top of his head gently and an eye appeared above his head. Just looking at the eye could make people feel suffocated. Evil Eye Flame, kill them all. Swoosh. Flames flickering with an illusory luster shot out from the eye. This evil eye also had great origins. Normally Master Wallace would not use it to fight his enemy. Now that he was in great danger, he employed it without hesitation. The flames were indeed very powerful. The sea of flames that shot out from the eye were able to restrain Miguel's souls. As the flames swept through, over 1,000 souls instantly burned into nothingness. Not bad, but what a pity it is far from enough. Miguel was certain that he could beat Master Wallace. He had personally come to the central region on Zen's invitation and certainly had some skills to show. Miguel was almost invincible in his soul division domain. The only way to defeat him was if some more powerful master could kill all the souls at the same time. Then he might be able to force Miguel's true body to appear. But Master Wallace was no match as he certainly couldn't do that. Miguel's souls kept coming at Master Wallace non-stop. All the souls had a faint smile on the faces. He gently pinched his fingers, and a wave of formless energy emitted from him. Miguel was like an ancient sacred emperor at that moment. He exuded the aura of a supreme ruler of the heavens and the earth. Emperor Destruction Finger. Only those in the Soul Sea Realm could become emperors. But in general, the war kings and war emperors only existed within the 4 divine kingdoms. There were many sacred places on the Sea God continent, but there wasn't a tradition of setting up monarchy. However, this didn't mean that they didn't have the ability to establish their own kingdoms and have an extremely powerful person as their emperor. Over 10,000 souls of Miguel suddenly erupted with a power so violent it felt like it could annihilate all lives in the heavens and on earth. It shot fiercely towards Master Wallace. Every single beam of light that shot out from a soul was equal to 1,000th of Miguel's strength. With the tens of thousands of beams of light shooting out, Miguel's strength was amplified 10 times. In other words, Master Wallace had to fend attacks from 10 Miguels at the same time. Such formidable strength was unimaginable and unbeatable. Zen stood atop the walls of Oracle City and watched this scene with gleaming eyes. The opportunity to observe a battle between the masters of Soul Sea Realm was a blessing for him. Is this the power of the domain? Zen thought in a daze. If he could step into the Soul Sea Realm in the future and create a domain, what would his domain be like? Would it be comparable to Miguel's domain? This was an opportunity for Zen as well as for the many martial artists in Oracle City to study domains. A fight between the masters at Soul Sea Realm could affect a large area. Although other warriors at the Soul Sea Realm were guarding the area, there was no guarantee that fighters would always be able to contain their energy within the range. If the formidable energy waves accidentally came out of the domains, it could vaporize the entire Oracle City. Still, the warriors of the World Commercial Alliance risked their lives to observe the battle in the sky. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to witness such a high-level battle. As the martial artists saw the scene of how these masters fought, their bodies trembled in anticipation. Those martial artists whose warrior spirit was not strong enough would not be able to watch the fight, as they would be worried that their generation wouldn't be able to reach this height. It would frustrate them. But the eyes of those martial artists who had a positive attitude glistened in excitement. They hoped that one day they would be able to go through life and death crises and enter the Soul Sea Realm and obtain such formidable powers. This was the effect of cultivation on the warrior spirit. It could make positive people want to pursue higher goals. Boom! A small sun once again appeared in the sky with an explosion. The sound was dull and distant, spreading over 1,000 miles. As the light gradually dispersed, a small boy appeared once again. Master Wallace had hidden himself in a small turtle shell just before the Emperor Destruction Finger was about to hit him. The turtle shell was emerald green, as if it was made out of a large piece of jade. It looked incredibly beautiful. It was this gorgeous turtle shell that had resisted Miguel's massive attacks. But Master Wallace was still in a miserable state despite being hidden in the turtle shell. His face took on a scary dark red color. Obviously, he had suffered great injuries. Miguel was surprised to see that Master Wallace had withstood his attacks. The central region was weaker than the Sea God continent, but the inheritances of a divine kingdom were stronger than those of the Sea God continent. If it weren't for the turtle shell, Master Wallace would have been instantly obliterated by Miguel. Humph, I am determined to fight you to the finish. Master Wallace spoke to Miguel through gritted teeth. Fight me, Miguel smirked, or us. Master Wallace thought he would have a one-on-one fight with him. Miguel was confident of defeating him, but it was very difficult for one master at the Soul Sea Realm to kill another in a one-on-one battle. Moreover, Miguel didn't want Master Wallace to escape by using some tricks. The domains of several other powerful masters at the Soul Sea Realm began to inch towards Master Wallace. Seeing this, Master Wallace's heart sank. Now he was surely doomed. He had ambitiously set out from the York Divine Kingdom and traversed the chaotic ocean of stars in high spirits and hopes. He never thought that the central region would become the place where he breathed his last. All the powerful masters at the Soul Sea Realm attacked at the same time. Different domains entwined with each other, firmly trapping Master Wallace and Master Abraham within. For a moment, loud explosions burst forth from the sky, sending shivers down onlookers' spines. The two mighty warriors at the Soul Sea Realm from the York Divine Kingdom finally perished with the 9 powerful masters from the Sea God continent ganging up on them. Dylan and the others, who were watching the battle from Oracle City, couldn't help but shake their heads. It was such a pity that powerful figures, who had the ability to become emperors, were killed just like that. Chapter 754, The Slave Seal. Dylan sighed. It was not that he pitied Master Wallace. The almighty warriors of the Soul Sea Realm were born from tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of warriors. It took a lot of resources and time to reach the Soul Sea Realm, but it only took one quick moment to end them. This was the world of martial artists. Even if you stepped into the Soul Sea Realm and became an emperor, you still wouldn't be able to escape your fate. It was very difficult to kill a Soul Sea Realm warrior. Even in the 4 divine kingdoms, the death of a Soul Sea Realm warrior was an earth-shattering event. Master Wallace and Master Abraham had been too careless. They were surrounded by 9 Soul Sea Realm warriors with nowhere to escape. This was why they had ended up in such a sorry state. The battle had only lasted for a short time before they were both killed. Zen slowly floated into the air with his hands behind his back, arriving before the last surviving life and death realm warrior. He had answered Zen's question, so Miguel and the others let him go. Zen's gaze was fixed on his face. He was a powerhouse who had endured 5 life and death crises, and was stronger than Eddie. However, when he faced Zen, who was only at the middle stage of the virtual tribulation realm, he was petrified. Of course, Zen knew he was not afraid of him, but the persons behind him. You promised not to kill me," the warrior stammered. Zen nodded and laughed. "Yeah, I indeed agreed not to kill you, but I cannot let you stay in the central region, nor can I allow you to return to the York Divine Kingdom. What should I do? Do you have any ideas?" Well, the man's face froze. He had originally planned to say Zen bullied him, but so what? Zen could easily kill him. After all, he had not used his warrior spirit to take the oath. The warrior thought about it for a while and eventually shook his head. "I can't think of anything." Not too far away from Zen, Miguel faintly smiled. "It's simple. Just disable your skills." It was a simple but cruel suggestion. A life and death realm warrior whose cultivation was destroyed was as good as dead. But he had to pay a price for his life. Once he entered the life and death realm, he would have to fight against the heavens, law. He still had to undergo the small heavenly tribulations after he was disabled. When the heavenly tribulations began, they would follow a certain pattern and descend in an orderly manner at a fixed time without mistake. The life and death realm master had survived the last life and death crisis 100 years ago. The 6th one would come soon and, this time, he did not have the confidence to face it, so he had decided to follow Master Wallace to the central region. Firstly, he wanted to gain some good fortune. Secondly, if Master Wallace agreed to help him, his chances of surviving the next life and death crisis would greatly increase. Once his skills were disabled, he would just be an ordinary person. How would he be able to withstand the next life and death crisis? So when he heard Miguel's words, he refuted angrily, "If you disable me, it's as good as killing me." Miguel smiled coldly. "That's not a bad idea. Killing you is the easiest choice." Zen's eyes widened as he looked at the life and death realm powerhouse in front of him. Miguel would take the warrior's life with just a word from him. Zen's expression made the life and death realm warrior anxious. He was stubborn, but he was afraid of death. Moreover, he had already gone through 5 life and death crises. If he could survive the 6th, he would be able to start breaking through to the Soul Sea realm. He might still have a good future ahead of him. The weather wasn't too hot, so he would be comfortable even if he was in a sea of fire. But at this moment, sweat was dripping off his forehead. After some consideration, he clenched his teeth and said, "I have an idea." "Oh, what's it?" Zen asked curiously. From Zen's point of view, it was imperative to disable this person. If he couldn't, it would be safer to kill him. The main reason for this was that it was impossible for Miguel and the others to defend the central region forever. They had to return to the Sea God continent, and once they left, who would suppress this life and death realm powerhouse? There is a secret method in our divine kingdom. It's called Slave Seal. You can use it on me, the warrior said anxiously. Slave Seal? Zen asked, his eyes showing interest. Yes, those with slave seals cannot disobey their master's orders, much less go against their master's wills. They will be completely loyal to their masters. If you put the seal on me, you will be my master, the warrior explained hastily. Is the slave seal really so powerful? Zen asked, staring at the man in disbelief. Yes, the man answered with absolute certainty. The slave seal was indeed domineering. Under this seal, he would still have his own thoughts, but he would unconditionally obey his master. Different from the warrior who chose to be enslaved on his own initiative, many arrogant warriors chose to die rather than have a slave seal imprinted. Life and death realm warriors wouldn't want to become slaves at the mercy of others. However, this particular life and death realm warrior was rather afraid of death. If he was disabled, he would die. If not, he would be killed right there. On balance, he chose the slave seal to save his life. Maybe Zen would pity him and release the slave seal one day. Who knew? This was the best solution he could think of in his desperation. The slave seal sounds magical. How does one use it? Zen inquired. The warrior quickly took out a small, brown stone tablet from his space ring. On it was an incomparably exquisite rune. When Zen saw the rune, his eyebrows throbbed slightly. Is it a divine texture? Thought Zen. The cyan dragon answered from within. Yes, it is indeed. Why have I never seen this type of divine texture before? Zen asked doubtfully. He never ignored his divine texture skills when he was cultivating. Although he was unable to inscribe all of the divine textures that the cyan dragon taught him, the principles and shapes of all the divine textures were firmly etched in his mind. All but this one. The cyan dragon replied with a faint smile, "It's normal that you don't remember it, because you really haven't seen it before. Divine texture techniques are not unique to my clan. The ones that I taught you are passed down in the genuine dragon race, while the divine texture in his hand is inherited from the human race. Only humans have the need to develop such a divine texture to enslave others." The cyan dragon was proficient in the divine texture technique. It appeared as though he was looking down on this type of divine texture. "Are you sure?" Zen asked, wanting to be 100% sure. He would soon step into the 4 divine kingdoms. If he had a life and death realm powerhouse as a guide, it would save a lot of time and effort. But if he was tricked by this fellow, then he might cause trouble in the central region once Miguel and the others left. Zen wanted to avoid this at all costs. The cyan dragon nodded affirmatively. "This is a very common slave seal. Once enslaved, he will not be able to resist, but there is a requirement. That is, your soul force must be stronger than his. If not, the slave seal will turn against you." "I see." Zen was very confident of his soul. Master Wallace's soul had only reached the fighting soul realm. Zen was sure that this life and death realm warrior's soul couldn't be stronger than his own soul. He said to the warrior, "Well then, I will enslave you." The warrior was reluctant for a moment. However, even if he was having second thoughts, he didn't have any other choice. He tossed the brown stone token at Zen gloomily. Zen gently caressed the divine texture as he infused his life vitality into it, instantly activating the slave seal. Then he directed the slave seal towards the warrior. The seal instantly stuck to the warrior's forehead, releasing a little bit of light. When the light on his forehead disappeared, he had a dull look in his eyes. "My master, do you have any instructions?" He nodded to Zen. Zen smiled wickedly and said, "I want you to kill yourself." Chapter 755, Set Off. Zen's words brought a trace of admiration on the faces of Miguel and everyone else. Here was a man at his finest. They knew that Zen wasn't going to let the life and death realm master take his own life, but this was perhaps the most important test the warrior could ever face. When the life and death realm master heard Zen's words, his eyes gleamed and gradually became clear. He looked like a normal person right now, but at Zen's command, he suddenly stretched out his hands and gathered his green life vitality. The life vitality condensed into many sharp thorns which were about to hit his own head. Considering his strength, one thing was sure: if he slapped his head with his hand, he would definitely die. In the nick of time, Zen flatly ordered, "Stop." When the life and death realm master heard Zen's order, his hand froze in midair. He looked at the latter inquiringly, as if waiting for Zen to issue the next order, almost like a man possessed. "Don't kill yourself. Tell me your name," Zen coolly ordered him. The life and death realm master nodded and complied, "My name is Francis Cao." "All right, Francis Cao, follow me." After Zen had finished speaking, he flew downwards without looking back, as if he was certain that Francis Cao wouldn't refuse his orders. Without hesitation, Francis Cao nodded and followed closely behind him. The slave seal he had on him was very powerful and unique. Once enslaved, a warrior wouldn't lose himself and get turned into a puppet. In fact, he would still have his own consciousness. As long as Zen did not give any unusual orders, he would act like a normal person and no one would be able to see anything wrong from him. However, come what may, he could not disobey Zen's words. In less than 2 hours, the greatest crisis in the history of the central region was easily resolved. Dylan and the others were highly relieved now. They didn't have anything to worry about anymore. Since the very moment when Miguel had led a group of masters to the central region, those members of the York Divine Kingdom were doomed. In fact, Dylan and the others were now 100% certain that Zen had now practically become the leader of the central region, even if he didn't want to be. He had no choice but to admit this fact, even though he did not have the ambition to establish a divine kingdom. Even Zen could beat anyone in the central region if he brought out his own strength, not to mention the 100 powerful masters from the Sea God continent. Every single warrior in the central region knew as much. They only had to put 2 and 2 together to confirm that Zen was the most powerful person in the central region right now. Fortunately, Zen didn't have the ambition to unify the central region. Otherwise, if he tried to establish a divine kingdom, who would be able to go up against him? However, what they did not know was that Zen did have an ambition. In fact, Zen's ambition was greater than that of anyone in the central region and was beyond their imagination. His goal was not limited to this great world. He knew his future lay in the entire universe. However, he was only quietly keeping this goal in his heart. After defeating the warriors of the York Divine Kingdom, Miguel and the other masters didn't seem to be in any hurry to return to the Sea God continent. Miguel and the warriors of the Demon Knight were truly infatuated with the various delicacies and cultures of Oracle City. Since Amber was looking over the Sea God continent now, they didn't have to worry about it anymore, and they all seized the chances they could to enjoy the peaceful, relaxing moments in the Oracle City. However, Zen couldn't wait any longer. He wasn't sure how long Letitia could hold on, but the earlier he set out to look for life stones to save her, the more hope he had of her being okay. Therefore, Zen decided to go to the 4 divine kingdoms after 7 days. When Miguel heard Zen's plan, he also wanted to send several masters in the latter's wake. However, Zen refused. The 4 divine kingdoms were supposed to be even more powerful than the Sea God continent itself, with countless masters guarding them. Leading a group of warriors right into the 4 great divine kingdoms would only lead to more trouble. This was not the result that Zen wanted to see. Right now, he only wanted to obtain enough life stones to rescue Letitia, and he had no intention of fighting with anyone of the 4 divine kingdoms. After all, he didn't have much of a grudge with anyone in that area. Since Zen had been insistent in his refusal, Miguel did not force anything. He and the other warriors decided to go back to the Sea God continent when Zen left. Zen did not send Letitia back to the Cloud Hall. Although the Cloud Hall was safe for now, there were still some clans ready to make a move on the first chance they got. Since Zen was currently in the central region and was able to suppress them, no one was daring enough to act rashly, but if he left the central region, those clans might make a move. After all, people's greed increased with time. In comparison, Dylan and the others did not have any conflict with Letitia, and judging by the current situation of the central region, they were surely able to protect her. 7 days later, Zen and Margaret stayed in the Heavenly Stellar Palace. Margaret leaned lightly against Zen's back, her face full of reluctance. During the time that Margaret had stayed in the Heavenly Stellar Palace with Zen, she had been slightly jealous of Letitia on seeing Zen sigh for her and be depressed due to her condition. But she also felt sorry for Zen. It was a pity that she didn't have the strength to change anything. She could only accept fact that this man was going to risk his life for another woman. The masters of the 4 divine kingdoms were at least 100 times more powerful than those of the central region. Even though Margaret wasn't interested in the martial arts, she knew very well that Zen's trip was full of danger. "Zen, can I come with you?" Margaret asked, trying to make her voice sound softer. Perhaps this way, Zen would agree to her proposal. Over the last few days, other than looking after Zen, Margaret also frequently went into the purple power world to cultivate. She did not like the process, so this boring cultivation thing was a type of torture for her, but she was very clear about her own potential. As long as Margaret cultivated to a certain level and paid a certain price, she would be able to communicate with the true spirit. The true spirit of the purple power world possessed the power to turn everything to dust. If Zen encountered danger in the 4 great divine kingdoms, she could at least help him. "No," Zen responded, firmly refusing her without any hesitation. Margaret had already expected that Zen would reject her offer. She didn't look even the least bit angry, but continued to speak with her soft voice, "Just let me come with you this time, okay?" Zen let out a breath and turned his head to look at Margaret. He gently caressed her soft face and smiled. "Any time but this time." Only then did Margaret curl her lips and grudgingly mutter, "I wonder when I can have a chance and when the next time will come." "It won't be long," Zen said soothingly. Facing Margaret, Zen now had a faint feeling of affection. This woman might not be as agile as Letitia and Lavender. In the beginning, she was very arrogant, making people feel extremely disgusted with her. But after she had changed her character, she had become very attractive. She lowered her head, thinking of something. After a while, something seemed to strike her mind, so she suddenly raised her head and smiled. "Fine, you must promise me one thing for next time." "What can I promise you?" Zen asked. "No matter what request I make, you must agree to it." Margaret replied with a smile, though there was a serious expression on her elegant face. Zen's heart raced for a while when he saw Margaret's expression, and he immediately nodded his head. All the warriors in Oracle City, regardless of whether they were a part of the World Commercial Alliance or not, walked out of their houses and looked up at the sky. Today was the day that 100 masters would leave the city. Naturally, the 3 leaders of the World Commercial Alliance had to send them off personally. However, what surprised everyone was the fact that Miguel and the other warriors didn't accept any precious gifts for themselves. They also refused to accept the numerous treasures that the World Commercial Alliance had gifted them. After all, a low-grade sacred weapon that was treated as a treasure in the central region was a very common treasure in Miguel's eyes. Thus they of course didn't have any interest in the things that the World Commercial Alliance had given them. But what made people even more astonished was that Miguel actually packed a lot of ingredients from the central region with him and even asked the World Commercial Alliance for a few famous chefs. These chefs were also warriors, but they were only at the nature level. Even the most powerful one was only at the illuminating soul realm. Upon learning that they could go to another continent to prepare food for those soul sea realm masters, those chefs gladly agreed. They had been working hard in the World Commercial Alliance their whole lives, and they were only chefs. If they could serve these soul sea realm masters well, perhaps the latter would be pleased and might give them a chance to break through. For the chefs, this was a rare opportunity. Before Zen left, he looked deeply at Letitia who was lying on the bed. But once he left the heavenly stellar palace, all the sadness and disappointment disappeared from his face, replaced by a resolute expression. Soon after, Zen brought Francis Sao, who had been enslaved by him, to meet with Miguel and the others. They then rushed towards the eastern side of the central region. Miguel and the others returned to the sea god continent. As for Zen, he took advantage of the small period of time when the storm stopped raging on the chaotic ocean of stars. He immediately decided to cross it and enter the territory of the four great divine kingdoms. Chapter 756, Crossing the Chaotic Ocean of Stars. The World Commercial Alliance had strictly dictated that news of Zen leaving the central region should not spread. Any sane person would understand that the World Commercial Alliance had firmly taken control of the central region and become its overlord. And now, Zen was guiding the alliance. This had started after Zen had defeated Eddie. The other fourth-grade sects had already learned to keep quiet because they had neither the courage nor the strength to fight against the World Commercial Alliance. As Zen led a group of unknown supermasters to exterminate the powerhouses of the Divine Kingdom with lightning speed, fourth-grade sects such as the Bloodwood Cliff, the mysterious Luna Hall, and the Black Mountain sect could only bow their heads in submission. But they were glad that Zen had no plans to establish his own divine kingdom. If he really intended to establish a divine kingdom, take over all the sects, and combine the influence of the Cloud Hall and the World Commercial Alliance, who in the central region could resist him right now? But no matter what, Zen had great influence in the central region. This was why the World Commercial Alliance wanted to keep his whereabouts under wraps. As long as he was there, the York Divine Kingdom wouldn't dare to do anything. Dylan and the others obviously believed that if the York Divine Kingdom were to go all out, even Zen wouldn't be able to defend himself against it. However, each of the four divine kingdoms had their own axes to grind. They certainly wouldn't go through so much trouble just for the central region, a region that was not even worthy of mention. In the skies above the chaotic ocean of stars, two beams of light shot straight towards the east. After sending Miguel and the others away, Zen and Francis began to cross the chaotic ocean of stars. The storm in the chaotic ocean of stars could roughly last for any time between 3 to 6 months. Zen wanted to cross it whenever the storm paused. During this time, he had learned more about the York Divine Kingdom and the other 3 divine kingdoms from Francis. Compared to the central region, everything on this continent was controlled by the 4 divine kingdoms and there weren't any sects. Establishing a sect was the same as establishing one's own power, and the divine kingdoms would absolutely not allow this. This was because once a sect slowly rose to prominence, it would work against the divine kingdoms, even going ahead and establishing a new divine kingdom. 3 of the 7 divine kingdoms had been destroyed ages ago, leaving the 4 divine kingdoms and their setups intact. No new divine kingdoms had ever been established, resulting in the achievement of a grand unification. However, martial artists needed to cultivate, and divine kingdoms needed to nurture their own successors and descendants. So there was another form of sects in the divine kingdoms, the martial house. There were all sorts of martial houses in the divine kingdoms. These were similar to sects in the central region, but all of them were controlled by divine kingdoms. They had become sacred places for cultivation in the divine kingdoms, irrespective of their size. If one wanted to practice, get more resources and become stronger, he had to join a martial house. If you want to enter the Feather Holy Sea, you'll have to join a certain martial house, Francis suggested as they flew over the chaotic ocean of stars. Why? Zen asked, bewildered. Francis answered, the Feather Holy Sea is a miraculous sea. For years together, it has been monopolized by the 4 divine kingdoms, and no independent warrior has been qualified enough to enter it, let alone mine the life stones. Zen's eyebrows rose as he asked in confusion, since the Feather Holy Sea is a sea, then it should be incomparably vast. How can the 4 divine kingdoms defend it? You have no idea. Although the Feather Holy Sea sounds like a sea, it's actually just a relatively large inland lake. In order to monopolize many of the secret lands within the Feather Holy Sea, the 4 divine kingdoms have arranged massive forces around it. Many of the 4 divine kingdoms' strongholds were built around the sea. About 70% of the population and 90% of the powerhouses in these divine kingdoms live by the sea. Wanting to enter without permission is simply impossible, Francis replied. Since Zen had used the slave seal on Francis, he knew that Francis would not lie to him. Zen could even sense what was going through his mind, which meant that he could tell whether Francis was telling the truth. According to what Francis said, Zen would meet some trouble. His plan had included him secretly entering the Feather Holy Sea. If he could find any life stones in the Feather Emperor's secret land, he could leave and try to find an opportunity to return to the central region. But it looked like entering the Feather Holy Sea was going to be a huge problem. If I join a martial house, would I be qualified to enter the Feather Holy Sea? Zen asked. Francis smiled and replied, every year, the 4 divine kingdoms send people to enter the sea. There are 4 secret lands within the sea: the Feather Emperor's secret land, the Divine Emperor's secret land, the Mysterious Dream's secret land, and the Heavenly Stellar's secret land. Zen nodded. The 4 divine kingdoms must have several Soul Sea Realm masters to have developed to such an extent. This meant that there must be countless resources in these secret lands. Zen was sure that he could get more treasures from these secret lands than from the Tower of Sin and the dark nether cave of the Sea God continent. However, what Zen was most concerned about was the Feather Emperor's secret land. After all, it was his goal in this entire journey. If he could obtain enough life stones, he could return home. Francis continued, if you want to enter the first 3 secret lands, you must join a certain martial house, and it must be at least at the 5th grade. All the 5th grade martial houses in the 4 divine kingdoms have several slots, and if you want to enter the Feather Emperor's secret land, you must obtain a slot. What should I do? Zen asked. Join a martial house, and become the best martial artist in it, Francis replied. Zen didn't want to join any other sects. When he had first gone to the Tower of Sin, the people of the Purple Heart Sacred Place had invited him to join them, but he had rejected them. He was someone who cherished the old. Even though the Cloud Hall could no longer hold him with his current strength, he was still determined to become a member of the Cloud Hall. Is there any other way other than joining a martial house? Zen asked hopefully, though he knew what the answer was going to be. No, unless you can fight your way into the Feather Holy Sea against war kings and war emperors, said Francis. He then looked at Zen with a strange expression on his face. With your strength, it shouldn't be difficult for you to obtain a slot after joining the martial house. Before they had left for the central region, Francis had heard about Zen from Master Wallace. Master Wallace had told them that a super talent had appeared in the central region, and that he was much stronger than the divine-level talents in the divine kingdoms. He had even killed a 4th-level life and death realm martial artist with his cultivation, which had still been at the middle stage of the virtual tribulation realm at the time. It wasn't strange for someone at the illuminating soul realm to kill an internal elixir realm warrior. Many divine-level talents were able enough to do this. But the higher the cultivation level of warriors, the more powerful they were. And because of this, it was truly incredible for a warrior at the middle stage of the virtual tribulation realm to kill another warrior at the 4th level of the life and death realm. As a life and death realm warrior, every time Francis passed through a life and death crisis, he would feel as if he had been reborn. For Zen to challenge a life and death realm warrior, one could only imagine the astonishing talent he had. After a moment of thought, Zen finally felt relieved. Joining a martial house was just a temporary measure. Right now, Letitia's life was of utmost importance. So he made up his mind to join a martial house after entering the Divine Kingdom. He knew he couldn't fight his way into the Feather Holy Sea against war kings and war emperors. Zen was immersed in thought when a huge whirlpool suddenly appeared on the surface of the sea before him. Even though the storm in the chaotic ocean of stars had paused, there were still mountain-like waves rolling in the sea. When the whirlpool appeared, there were more than 10 mountain-like waves spiraling and crashing ahead. What a huge whirlpool! This whirlpool was the size of about a tenth of the area of the central region. Its edges formed countless white bubbles, while its middle was still the blue color of the sea. But it was pitch black at the bottom of the whirlpool, as if it could lead to perdition. Francis's eyes bugged as he saw the whirlpool. He said urgently, "Quick, fly to the sky." He might be enslaved by Zen and he might not be able to resist Zen's orders, but he was still afraid of death. Chapter 757, Arrival. Through the slave seal, Zen could clearly sense the fear in Francis's heart. Since things weren't looking well for them, they started looking terrified. It seemed that some fierce beast had suddenly appeared right before them. As Francis shot up towards the sky, Zen did so as well. In this boundless universe, humans were not considered as the sole rulers. Even in the sea god continent, there were many different types of intelligent races. Also, in this world, the area that the sea occupied far exceeded that of lands. Because of that, the amount of fierce beasts that were inhabiting the sea was tens of thousands of times greater than that of the creatures on land. Many of them dwelt in the depths of the vast ocean, and it bestowed upon them richer resources and a wider space to grow and develop. It was more than what land could ever provide for them. This reminded Zen of the time when he had just entered Mist's celestial tomb. When he was on that journey, he encountered high-grade fierce beasts that were comparable to cultivators at the life and death realm. But then, the place where Mist's celestial tomb was situated was not far from Central Region. At the center the chaotic ocean of stars, there existed beasts that were comparable to powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm. There were even creatures which were more powerful than masters at the Soul Sea realm. Splash! Just as Zen and Francis were rapidly rising up to the sky, a gigantic black shadow suddenly appeared beneath the vortex. As the loud sound of water splashing rang out, Zen looked back just in time to see a huge creature emerging from the water. Then, without warning, it leapt into the air. "What is that?" Zen asked as he stared at the huge creature behind him. Fear took a hold of his heart. The size of this fierce beast was probably not much smaller than that of the mad scorpion in the dark nether cave. As he was now in the chaotic ocean of stars, which was unimaginably vast, he wasn't as shocked as he had been when he had seen the mad scorpion in the dark nether cave. But then again, he thought, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. This fierce beast is more dangerous than the mad scorpion. This is the water-eyed swallowing beast. The creature is known for its gigantic size, and there are only a total of 4 of them in the chaotic ocean of stars. "We still need to go up," Francis shouted at Zen. "If this creature leaps up, it can reach a height of millions of feet." Truthfully, Francis was unwilling to help Zen in any way, shape, or form. Right now, running for his life was the most important thing to him. However, as Zen had planted the slave seal on him, he had no choice but to answer him. "Millions of feet, how did you know? Have you encountered this creature before?" Zen said in a very calm manner. Despite not being as fearful as Francis, he still maintained his high speed as he flew upwards. "Of course I know," Francis shouted back, rolling his eyes. "Everyone in the Divine Kingdoms knows that. The 4 Divine Kingdoms had once sent many powerful masters at the Soul Sea realm to capture one. They stormed the chaotic ocean of stars as a single force to attempt to capture a young water-eyed swallowing beast. They were successful, yes, but immediately after that, one of the water-eyed swallowing beasts charged all the way to the Divine Kingdom continent in anger, and it turned a third of the territory of our York Divine Kingdom into ruins before returning to the ocean." He further explained. Upon hearing this, Zen couldn't help but be speechless. The warriors of the 4 Divine Kingdoms were virtually crazy. Fierce beasts of that level were definitely not something masters at the Soul Sea realm would be able to contend with, but they actually dared to enter the chaotic ocean of stars to capture a cub. But Francis blew some parts of his story out of proportion. He mentioned that the water-eyed swallowing beast destroyed 1/3 of the York Divine Kingdom's continent, but truthfully, the York Divine Kingdom didn't suffer such a great loss. It was just like what Francis had said before, the important cities of the 4 Divine Kingdoms were all built around the Feather Holy Sea, which was situated at the center of the Divine Kingdom continent. The areas surrounding the Feather Holy Sea were extremely prosperous. Each Divine Kingdom occupied a quarter of the Feather Holy Sea's coastlines. But in the periphery of the Divine Kingdom continent, the places were desolate. Even if a third of its land was destroyed, it wouldn't be a great loss to the York Divine Kingdom. Despite that, this whole story only proved one thing to Zen: the martial artists of the 4 Divine Kingdoms were even crazier and greedier than he had imagined. Ever since the incident with the 4 Divine Kingdoms, every time the water-eyed swallowing beast sensed any trace of a human, they would leap out of the water to attack. As Francis and Zen were talking, the water-eyed swallowing beast had already completely leapt out of the water. It pounced on Zen and Francis. "Up, up, we still need to go up," Francis exclaimed anxiously. Their figures continued to ascend into the sky. Soon, they broke through the clouds and into the deep sky. Can that thing really jump so high?" Zen asked as he gazed below him. He wanted to see how close the creature was to them, but a thick layer of clouds had completely blocked his vision. Just as he thought that they were not being pursued anymore, he saw the colossal creature break through the clouds once again and continue to chase after them. Its sudden emergence disturbed the flow of air and even opened up a large hole in the thick clouds. "Good heavens, keep on rising quickly," Zen shouted once again, fear now evident in his voice. As Zen continued his ascent, he suddenly saw huge gusts of wind blowing towards them. Strong gales are coming. These gusts of howling winds were not invisible or colorless, there were golden lines embedded around them. With that, he was able to recognize what those were, the convective gusts of wind in the deep sky that were said to crush and destroy anything that got in them. Zen had seen such strong gusts of wind before. In order to cultivate the stellar body, he had to take advantage of the gravitational force of the stars to project his spiritual sense hundreds of millions of miles away. Every time he cultivated the stellar body, Zen would have to pass through the layer of strong gales. However, in the past, it was only his spiritual sense that went through such strong gales. But this time, however, he was facing them head-on, and it was his physical body that had to pass through them. Zen knew that these strong gales would be able to destroy almost everything in their path. Even if Zen's body was a top-grade fairy weapon, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand them. With the intense wind coming nearer and nearer to him, Zen twisted his body and drew a circle in the air. He then rapidly flew towards the downwind of the layer of gusts. Seeing this, Francis followed closely behind. From his point of view, he couldn't wait to see Zen get killed by the strong gales. Not one being would be willing to carry a slave seal and become someone else's slave. No one in their right mind would agree to not have control over their own life. Not to mention, he was a master at the 5th level of the life and death realm. When he caught himself thinking this, though, he quickly shook his head, as if to shake it off. After all, he thought, furrowing his eyebrows, Zen could control everything I do and could decide my life or death. With this quick turn of direction, Zen avoided the strong gales in the sky. At the same time, the huge water-eyed swallowing beast charged forward to the gales head first. The violent gales sliced the back of the water-eyed swallowing beast and caused huge cuts on its back in an instant. Oh! When the water-eyed swallowing beast came into contact with the gales, its back suddenly became a mess of flesh and blood. Fresh blood started gushing out of its wounds like a huge waterfall. With that, it stared resentfully at Zen and Francis with its huge eyes. Then it lowered its head and started going down, slowly disappearing from their view. Fortunately, the water-eyed swallowing beast couldn't fly. It only managed to reach so high by relying on its powerful leap. If it could fly, then the chances of them getting caught by the creature was high. Floating silently above the clouds, Zen felt a lingering fear in his heart. He glanced at Francis, who was beside him, and said, "The water-eyed swallowing beast has formed such a deep grudge for the 4 divine kingdoms. It's astonishing how this beast is actually going to kill any human it sees." Francis wiped the sweat off his forehead and shook his head. Perhaps it is right, this water-eyed swallowing beast's young cub that was stolen by the powerful warriors at the Soul Sea realm. The beast's blood gushed out like a waterfall and colored the skies red when it spread and mingled with the clouds. If these clouds drifted into the central region or the divine kingdoms, they would probably cause a bloody rain. People think it would be an omen, thought Zen passingly, as he stared at the stained horizon. Snapping out of his thoughts, he turned to Francis and said, "I think it would be better if we move ahead above the clouds," suggested Zen. Even though the storm in the chaotic ocean of stars had temporarily stopped, it was still filled with all sorts of dangers. Above the clouds, that would be even more dangerous, Francis hurriedly said, a slightly fearful look flashing in his eyes. "It's also very dangerous above the clouds?" Zen asked, his eyes gleaming with apprehension. Just as Zen finished speaking, a bitter smile appeared on Francis's face. "Danger is coming, Zen. Let's go. We'll be safer under the clouds." At this moment, in the distant sea of clouds, Zen noticed a few black shadows flying. Although they were blurry, he could still make out that they were a type of a huge bird. Although they didn't know how strong those birds were, it wasn't something they thought they could fight against. The two of them didn't talk anymore and instead dove into the sea of clouds. They returned to the chaotic ocean of stars and continued to fly towards the Divine Kingdom continent. Above the huge waves of the chaotic ocean of stars, there was a large amount of dark red blood blobs. Needless to say, these were left behind by the water-eyed swallowing beast who just got injured a while ago. As the two journeyed, they encountered so many dangers. For example, on the surface of the sea, a few reefs covered in mist suddenly appeared. They heard beautiful singing coming from them, the type of music that would seduce travelers to stop for a bit and rest. Zen and Francis almost got hooked by it. It was only when Zen approached the reef and he saw a few indistinct black figures standing on it that he was jolted into consciousness once again by the cyan dragon in his mind. Although he did not know what those terrifying shadows were, it was very clear that if he were to go near them, he would definitely die. On the other hand, Francis just smiled and kept flying towards the reef. Zen had no choice but to use the slave seal to command Francis to follow him, effectively rescuing him from the claws of death. They traveled cautiously through the treacherous chaotic ocean of stars after that. After more than 10 days of travel, Zen finally saw a continent in the distance. Chapter 758. A glance will take your life. The continent in front of Zen that belonged to the 4 divine kingdoms was vast and boundless, and even he found it difficult to determine just how big it was. But he guessed that it was much larger than the sea god continent in the central region. Which divine kingdom's territory is this? Zen asked. Francis smiled slightly before he replied, we've come all the way from the central region and crossed the chaotic ocean of stars. The Fire Divine Kingdom is part of the border of the chaotic ocean of stars, while the York Divine Kingdom is the other part. I think this territory belongs to the Fire Divine Kingdom. Which divine kingdom would you like to enter? I'll choose to enter the Fire Divine Kingdom then. Zen did not intend to cultivate and develop in any of the 4 divine kingdoms. His goal was clear, he wanted the life stones. Since he couldn't enter the Feather Holy See, he had to choose a martial house. Zen was not familiar with the 4 divine kingdoms. In the same way, no one in the 4 divine kingdoms knew him. This time wouldn't be like the first time he had entered the sea god continent and was hunted down by ogres the moment he had arrived. But he still had to be wary of the Holy Maiden of the Divine Kingdom. Since Zen had killed the Prince of the York Divine Kingdom in Mist's celestial tomb, the Holy Maiden had vowed to kill him for revenge. He wouldn't be as foolish as to choose to enter the York Divine Kingdom of his own volition. There were a lot of people living in divine kingdoms, but powerhouses were rare everywhere. There were very few virtual tribulation realm warriors in divine kingdoms. If Zen chose the York Divine Kingdom, he would be in a lot of trouble with the Holy Maiden. Francis had no objection to Zen's choice and followed him, albeit carefully. He had survived in the central region. Although he had become Zen's slave, if Zen died or the day came when he was no longer needed, the day of his freedom would surely come. As Francis had mentioned, the area near the sea was sparsely populated. They had been flying at a high speed for a long time, but they hadn't come across any city of any size. This place was even more desolate than the central region. But as they flew on, the number of towns they came across gradually increased. Zen looked around, only to find that most people in these towns were ordinary people. Even if there were martial artists, they had only reached the nature level. Of course, he wasn't about to linger here and continued onward. Further into the Harlan Divine Kingdom, there were a few medium-sized cities. And then, slowly, a few large cities came into view. The layout of this divine kingdom was completely different from that of the central region. The cities in the central region were scattered across the continent like chess pieces. In the divine kingdom, however, as they went deeper, they met more people and saw larger cities. Zen had found quite a few martial houses in these cities, some of which had reached the 3rd or even the 4th level. But he did not stay. As Francis had told him, only those martial houses that belonged to grade 5 and above were qualified to explore the Feather Holy See. A few days later, Zen finally laid eyes on a huge city. At the front gate of the city stood a stone statue that was over 3,000 feet tall, almost the size of a small mountain. Watching Zen size up the statue, Francis told him, "This is the first emperor of the Harlan Divine Kingdom, War King Harlan. He established the Harlan Divine Kingdom." "Oh, is he dead?" Zen asked, curious. Internal Elixir Realm warriors could live for hundreds of years. Virtual Tribulation Realm warriors could live for 1 to 2,000 years. Life and Death Realm warriors could live for thousands of years. Soul Sea Realm Masters could live for over 10,000 years. There must be many legendary warriors in the Divine Kingdoms who had lived for over 10,000 years. Yes, the Harlan Divine Kingdom has a long history. War King Harlan had lived for 13,000 years, but he still died in the end, Francis said pityingly. There was a curse on all martial artists of the 4 Divine Kingdoms. They would all die in the end, no one could escape it. Usually, after reaching the Soul Sea Realm, one could fly to the upper world and obtain a higher level of life. But there was no way one could do so in this great world. Since ancient times, almost no one in the central region had been able to reach the Soul Sea Realm. Whether they could fly to the upper world or not didn't mean much. The Life and Death Realm warriors were the strongest, and most of them died when they went through life and death crises. However, there were a lot of Soul Sea Realm masters in the 4 Divine Kingdoms. They couldn't fly to the upper world even when they gathered together. In the end, their lifespan would run out and they would die under the curse of the 5 aging processes. As the saying went, martial artists had to struggle for their life against the heavens. But this great world didn't have enough resources for their cultivation. How could they possibly fight for their life? All the powerhouses of divine kingdoms were helpless against this quandary. But many masters of the sea god continent, including Amber, were also facing this problem. The demon knight, however, was different from other races and could communicate with the upper world. If something happened in the upper world to attract the attention of the demon knight, they had their means to fly up there. The genuine dragon also had dragon soar arenas and could break through the restrictions. The large city that loomed up before Zen was called the Crane City. It was the second largest city in the Harlan Divine Kingdom, only second to the capital. Such a large city surely had an air ban, and moreover, Zen wouldn't be so arrogant as to fly directly into the city. It was only when he entered the city that he felt its aura. There were only a few dozen virtual tribulation realm martial artists in the central region. This was an astonishingly small proportion since the number of mortals and martial artists in the massiveness of Oracle City added up to over 100 million. However, not long after Zen had entered Crane City, he encountered many virtual tribulation realm martial artists. The proportion in this city was by no means larger than that of Oracle City, but their absolute number was much larger. The Jade Martial House in the city is as strong as a 6th grade sect, and is famous among the 4 divine kingdoms. With your current strength and cultivation, you should be able to join them, Francis said to Zen. Zen nodded, but he still had his doubts. Martial houses usually recruit warriors at lower realms, right? For example, the Cloud sect in the eastern region usually recruited learners who were at the first stage. Also, the Cloud Hall wouldn't recruit disciples who were at the internal elixir realm. The larger sects would reject independent warriors. After all, it would be hard for them to remain loyal if they thought of joining a sect. Francis shook his head and said, "Master, you're worrying too much. The divine kingdoms are very different from the central region. Everyone in the divine kingdoms is considered a member. Martial houses don't want to train their own disciples, they do it for the sake of the divine kingdoms." Zen had compared martial houses to sects, but in fact, he should have been comparing sects to divine kingdoms. For example, if the Cloud Hall was compared to a divine kingdom, then martial houses were like the elite house within the Cloud Hall. It was not an independent sect, so all resources in the martial houses were given directly by divine kingdoms. Even if Zen called himself an independent warrior, no martial house would truly view him as one. Instead, they would view Zen as part of the divine kingdom. The moment he stepped into the Harlan Divine Kingdom, he was considered a member of the kingdom, not an independent warrior. Only now did Zen finally understand. He asked for directions to the Jade Martial House and headed towards it, Francis in tow. Since he couldn't fly within the city, he went ahead on foot. A particular street in the city had a red wall to his right. The faint sound of waves could be heard from beyond it and he could smell the saltiness of the sea. There's the smell of the sea. Could it be? Zen had walked deeper into the Harlan Divine Kingdom, staying far away from the chaotic ocean of stars. If there was seawater outside the walls, it would most likely be the Feather Holy Sea. Francis nodded and said, "You're right. The Feather Holy Sea is right outside these walls." Just how mysterious was the Feather Holy Sea? He wasn't allowed to enter or even look at it. But why? Zen was even more puzzled now. Francis wasn't surprised at Zen's confusion. He smiled and said, "The Feather Holy Sea is related to the ruling position of the 4 divine kingdoms. This inland sea is their forbidden land. Normal martial artists aren't qualified to even take a look at it." "What happens if I do?" Zen asked. Francis laughed. "A single glance will take your life." Chapter 759, The Jade Martial House. For Zen, the Feather Holy Sea was a mystery. He wondered how such a small inland sea could gather so many secret lands. After hearing Francis's words, he became even more curious. What really was the Feather Holy Sea? They were all under the same impression that ordinary warriors weren't even allowed once to glance at it. Was it true that one could die right after looking at it? The idea was somewhat ridiculous for Zen. Is the entire Feather Holy Sea surrounded by these city walls? Zen asked, crossing his arms on his chest. Yes, the city walls have been built in a complete circle, tightly surrounding the entire Feather Holy Sea. Hovering over the place is a far-fetched task, as a no-fly ban is imposed. Once anyone breaks the rule, life and death realm masters will come rushing to the scene, Francis answered. Truly, the vastness of the city walls around an inland sea was unimaginable. Hearing this surprised Zen all the more. Wasn't that a bit too exaggerated? What kind of treasures were tucked in the Feather Holy Sea that made all risks they took worth it? The divine kingdoms, war kings and war emperors weren't a bunch of idiots. There was a reason behind everything that they had done. The more curious Zen became, the more urge he grew to go and have a look for himself. He wanted to see for himself. What was the Feather Holy See all about? Are you thinking of breaking this no-fly ban? Let's say you get past the Life and Death Realm Warriors. The Soul Sea Realm Warriors will appear next, coming one after the other just to make sure you don't find anything. It's too dangerous, Francis warned. Zen shook his head and laughed. He understood Francis quite well, and he knew that it really was dangerous. To do something like that was a stupid idea. Francis told him days ago that if he were to forcefully break through the Feather Holy See, it could attract war emperors too. Hence, he could lose his chance of getting in the Feather Emperor's secret land. Finally, Zen left the city walls. It took him about 5 minutes to finally locate the legendary Jade Martial House. The Jade Martial House was equivalent to a 6th-grade sect. Its front door was built in such an unusual style, and countless warriors knelt in front. Glancing at the view, Zen realized that there were more than 10,000 warriors kneeling on the ground, and most of them were at the illuminating soul and internal elixir realms. He frowned at the scene before him and asked, "What's going on?" The Jade Martial House is the martial arts sacred land of the Harlan Divine Kingdom. These warriors want to enter, but they failed to meet the requirements. They only hope that their sincerity will one day influence the members of the martial house and change their minds, Francis answered. What he heard astonished him beyond belief. Those warriors did such a thing just so they could enter a martial house. The warriors of the central region could cultivate themselves through a variety of channels. If one was unable to enter a certain sect, they could join another one or even cultivate on their own. As for the divine kingdoms, the martial houses that they supported held absolutely a monopoly over all. If one wanted to cultivate to a higher level, then there was no other way to achieve such a goal other than entering the martial house. In the beginning, many warriors were unable to enter the Jade Martial House. They went home with nothing but disappointment. One day, there was a warrior who refused to accept his fate, so instead of going home upon rejection, he knelt down in front of the Jade Martial House's entrance. For 10 long years, that was all he did. Not once did he stop for anything, nor did he let anything stop him from serving his purpose. Eventually, an elder of the Jade Martial House was touched by his gesture. Even if that particular warrior wasn't the most skilled, he was welcomed into the martial house in the end. This earnest behavior and the astonishing story influenced more and more warriors. Warriors of inferior talents also fell to their knees after failing to enter the Jade Martial House. Some of them had been there for 1 or 2 years, while some for 8 or 10. However, the Jade Martial House members didn't take heed of their pleas. A warrior's talent was as important as his perseverance. An influential martial house didn't waste its time on the warriors who weren't skillful. However, the warriors firmly believed that their sincerity could convince the members otherwise. That was why they still tried to enter the Jade Martial House through that method. For Zen, it was kind of absurd. Immediately, he stepped onto the stairs of the martial house and headed straight for the door. There were guards standing on both sides of the martial house, and most of them were internal elixir realm warriors. When they noticed that Zen's cultivation was at the virtual tribulation realm and that a life and death realm master followed close behind him, the expressions on their faces changed. All of them had a look that showed respect towards the two. They all guessed that the young man came from a big clan and got there along with his servant to register for the martial house. All of them also believed that since Zen had managed to hire a life and death realm master to be his old servant, his clan must be of immense power. It might even be the royal family. Despite all those assumptions, one of the guards still tried to stop Zen. The guard then politely smiled at Zen and asked, "May I know your purpose in visiting our Jade Martial House?" "I would like to participate in the admission test of the Jade Martial House," Zen spoke softly. "Test?" The guards looked at each other with furrowed eyebrows. One of them said, "Our martial house holds a test every month, but it isn't today. You still need to wait for half a month for the next one, and to take part in it, you need." The guard then explained to Zen the details of the test thoroughly. The thing that Zen was most worried about didn't happen. As long as he was in the Divine Kingdom, he was to be regarded as a citizen, and the Jade Martial House couldn't possibly reject him. If he passed the test, he could become a member of the Martial House. In addition, the Martial House wasn't a sect, and they didn't have any restrictions or requirements for someone like Zen. It was safer to say that those who entered the Martial House became its partners, not just disciples. It was natural that the warrior could, later on, have a cooperative relationship with the Martial House instead of just obeying it through and through. In fact, the 4 great divine kingdoms also competed with each other. Besides the heavenly stellar secret land, they had also invested a great deal of manpower and resources into the other 3 secret lands. Thus, the competition among the 4 great divine kingdoms was extremely intense, and all kinds of benefits in the martial houses also increased. After he heard the description of the test from the guard, Zen nodded and left with Francis. Since they were already there, they decided to follow the plan and take action step by step. It was useless for them to be in such a hurry. Temporarily, Zen left that day. During the half-month wait, Zen had also roughly observed the internal structure of the Harlan Divine Kingdom, and his thoughts about it became somewhat clearer. There were a total of 2 6th-grade martial houses in the Harlan Divine Kingdom. One was located in the capital of the Harlan Divine Kingdom, and the other was the Jade Martial House. The 2 martial houses held the quota of warriors to enter the Feather Holy See. However, it was not easy for him to obtain a spot. He needed to be one of the top martial artists before he got the chance to get the spot. The reason for that was because all the warriors who managed to enter the Feather Emperor's secret land were at least life and death realm masters. Even if Zen passed the test and secured a good result in the martial house, he still had to compete with those life and death realm masters if he really wanted to set foot in the Feather Holy See. Zen had long anticipated this, but he managed to stay collected. Besides cultivating, he even bought some books with him to learn more about the local customs of the 4 great divine kingdoms. The more he learned, the more he was advantageous. Opportunities always came to those who prepared well. As Zen made his way to the Feather Holy See to rescue Letitia, he had to be prudent before making any hasty move. Relatively speaking, that trip to the 4 great divine kingdoms was much more comfortable than the one to the Sea God continent. However, it was clear to Zen that he was eventually going to compete against the masters. Half a month later, Zen had registered according to the instructions. After he obtained a token, he was finally allowed to walk into the entrance of the Jade Martial House. Just as he did so, 4 life and death realm warriors aggressively rushed from behind him. When they were in front of Zen, one of them yelled, "Move!" Zen frowned slightly as he heard the sound coming just right behind where he stood. He turned his head to look and was met with a whip. With the same displeased look on his face, Zen watched Francis as he grabbed the whip. Then, his eyes fell on the person behind the 4 life and death realm warriors. He was a young man who wore a brocade robe and appeared to be only at the age of 17 or 18. However, he had already reached the late stage of the virtual tribulation realm. Chapter 760, The Harlan Token. The young man in front of Zen obviously came from a prominent family. He had a well-defined face, a finely embroidered robe that looked quite expensive, and excellent manners. The 4 bodyguards at the life and death realm he had with him informed Zen that this young man's status was not modest by any means. He might even actually be a prince, like the one he had met so long ago back in Immortal Mist's celestial tomb. If he wasn't a prince, he was at least a very important figure here in the Harlan Divine Kingdom. Zen wouldn't really know for sure. He had just arrived after all and was consciously making an effort to be careful since he was still unfamiliar with how things worked here. But, no matter how careful he was, trouble just seemed to gravitate towards him. "Are you also a candidate?" the young man said haughtily. Despite the good manners and fine facade, Zen knew that it would have been impossible for this young man to not have an arrogant side to him. "Yes," Zen answered curtly, trying to suppress his annoyance. "Great, I haven't seen any independent warriors that are around the same cultivation level as you. I'm also going to participate in the assessment. Follow me," the young man ordered arrogantly. Martial houses function differently from the sects in Central Region. Here, they gathered multiple warriors in order to select those with decent enough strength to compete against the other divine kingdoms in the secret places. In Cloud Hall, the system would be to gather its own disciples. However, in the divine kingdoms, there was no such thing. Whoever had the strength could enter the secret places and excavate the treasures within. Zen froze at his command. "Follow him," he thought to himself before shaking his head. "I'm sorry, I've always been alone and I'm not really used to being someone's follower," he refused politely. One of the guards erupted into a white-hot rage at Zen's words. "How dare you? Our young master has thought highly of you and granted you the honor of following him." The guard's anger did not faze Zen. "Since you think highly of me, surely you wouldn't make things difficult for me, would you?" His words made the young man chuckle. "Good, you have guts. I like you." He looked back at his guards. "Let's go." His reaction left Zen feeling quite confused and a little bit shocked. He didn't think he'd leave him alone that easily. He had actually gotten himself ready for a fight just in case. The 4 guards the young man had with him surely wouldn't be an easy kill. Nevertheless, he was grateful for the avoidance of unnecessary drama. Though he knew he could take out warriors at the life and death realm, he preferred to conserve his strength in case he had to escape from a warrior at the Soul Sea realm. Francis let out a sigh of relief beside him. Thank goodness you held yourself back. Why? Zen asked, raising an eyebrow. Who was he anyway? Who was that guy? If I'm not wrong, that guy is Lord Randy of the Harlan Divine Kingdom, Francis answered. Lord Randy? That young man is a lord? Zen couldn't help but remark in surprise. Francis had already given Zen a brief rundown of how the 4 divine kingdoms worked. Their customs and frameworks were very similar to a hierarchical dynasty. The divine kingdoms had a multitude of princes which made it difficult for them to ascend to the throne. Given the amount of resources and treasure at the hands of the divine kingdoms, fostering and producing a warrior at the Soul Sea realm here was very much possible. A ruler had to reach this level in order to be heralded and respected as a leader. An emperor at the Soul Sea realm, therefore, had unprecedented strength and an extremely long lifespan of more than 10,000 years. It was due to this impressive lifespan that an emperor could also be expected to sire around 10,000 children. Perhaps even more. It was their sheer number that made it difficult to attain the throne. All the princes would need to compete with their siblings to curry their father's favor. Those unfortunate to be less than stellar and failed to get their parents' attention could never hope to be granted the honor of talking to their father their entire lives. It could be said that the competition among these princes was much more difficult and cutthroat than the competition among ordinary warriors. For a warrior, strength was everything. If 2 warriors did not have enough strength to topple each other, they still had the chance to get along well. However, the rules of the divine court were different. If you did not have strength, you were effectively doomed to have a fate worse than a beggar. So for a young man like Randy to have reached his status at such a young age, his strength should by no means be underestimated. Lord Randy is the pride of the Harlan Divine Kingdom. His status is only second to the Crown Prince, so it's best we steer clear of him to avoid giving offense, Francis warned Zen. Zen nodded at his words and walked in the general direction Randy had gone to. There were naturally many warriors in the martial house, those at the nature level, illuminating soul realm, and internal elixir realm. They did not pay much attention to Zen. Those who noticed that he was a warrior at the virtual tribulation realm with a warrior at the life and death realm following behind him only took a quick glance before carefully walking away with lowered heads. Countless courtyards were set up from the martial house entrance all the way to the foot of the mountain. From the instructions before, Zen would have to find the one where he could register for the assessment. It did not take long and, once he arrived, he saw that it was mostly independent warriors who came to register for the exam. However, they were subdivided according to their realms. There was a long line for the courtyard of nature creatures, so long that one wouldn't be able to see where it ended or where it began. Zen could estimate that there were more than 10,000 warriors lined up. How long will this take? There are so many people here. He asked in bewilderment. It's actually quite common for warriors to line up for 1 or 2 months. It's not really a big deal since it's for the sake of entering the martial house. Francis told him with a chuckle. Zen thought back at the ones he saw in the open space outside the martial house. There were some who had been kneeling outside for several years or even decades just to get in. Next to the nature creatures, courtyard was the one for those at the illuminating soul realm. It was also hard to see where this one ended, but there were considerably less people here than the last courtyard. In the next courtyard was the line for the warriors at the internal elixir realm, and it seemed only a few hundred came to take the exam. Even in the divine kingdoms, it seemed only a few people could enter the internal elixir realm. The next courtyard was for those at the virtual tribulation realm, where only a handful of warriors waited. There was actually no need for them to even line up at all. A warrior at the virtual tribulation realm was regarded as a mighty warrior here in the divine kingdoms. The respect was still high, but they were not as feared as they would have been back in Central Region. Those below the virtual tribulation realm entered the martial houses for the multitude of things it could offer: resources, cultivation methods, pills, and cultivation rooms. The divine kingdoms themselves provided these resources, and the higher the grade of the martial house, the better and more outstanding items they were given. This was the primary reason why so many lower-level warriors fought to enter the martial houses. Warriors at the virtual tribulation realm were different. These warriors had been on the path of cultivation for a long time, and ordinary cultivation resources that the martial houses provided wouldn't really be of much use to them at this point. Even the Tower of Sin could only breed top-level warlords. Warriors at the virtual tribulation realm could only rely on themselves if they wanted to advance through experiencing life and death situations and making breakthroughs through adversity. If they were lucky, they might be able to obtain a good opportunity during their advancement, which would then effectively open up the road towards enlightenment. It was this good opportunity that they all yearned for. The warriors at the virtual tribulation realm that had come to sign up had the same goal as Zen, to represent the Harlan Divine Kingdom and enter the Sea of Miracle. Some were independent warriors while a few came from other martial houses. They were probably from 3rd grade or even 4th grade martial houses and came here to a higher grade martial house to be able to enter the Sea of Miracle. Hopping from one martial house to another did not really mean that one had turned his back to his original martial house. All martial houses worked for divine kingdoms after all. A woman at the internal elixir realm came up to Zen as soon as he entered the courtyard. She welcomed him and asked if he wanted to participate in the test to obtain the Harlan token. This Harlan token was what he would need to enter the Sea of Miracle. According to the agreement among the 4 divine kingdoms, each would issue a corresponding number of tokens every year to those deemed worthy. These tokens were equal to the licenses to the Feather Holy See, and those issued by the York Divine Kingdom were called York tokens. Zen naturally nodded. His purpose was to enter the Feather Holy See after all.